Chapter 61, War of the Gods? Athena vs Tsukuyomi? Ares walked back into the Greek waiting room in triumph, his chest still bleeding, and his axe still bloody. Yeah. The Greek gods welcomed back the god of war in triumph. Well done, Ares. Zeus spoke. Of course, father. Ares replied. But we cannot let up. We both know who's next. It's one of their three great deities, Tsukuyomi. Athena, you need to be careful. Do not let the easy victory Ares had disrupt your thoughts. If you aren't careful, you'll be caught in his illusions and then the match will be over. Zeus explained to the woman. I know, Zeus. And I will win. Athena declared. Athena marched towards the door and left to head towards the arena. Down in the arena the stadium had been repaired and the announcer was now ready to announce the second match. Wow folks, what a first match, am I right? But if you loved that one then you're gonna love this next one. So, let's get it going. From the land of Japan, he is renowned as the mighty lunar lord. He who rides in darkness. His blade, the Totsuka blade, is legendary for being able to divide the sun and pierce the heavens. He is the man who killed Yukumosai, the goddess of food, and enraged the sun. He is Tsukuyomi. The entire arena turned dark as if the sun had suddenly been turned off, and in the center of the arena a full moon appeared, with bright and beautiful pink cherry blossoms falling from it. The cherry blossoms swirled around in a vortex and suddenly appearing in the middle of them was Tsukuyomi, his long white hair flowing down his back. He exerted this presence that felt crushing to many gods in the arena. He was without a doubt powerful. The Shinto gods roared to life for the appearance of one of their chief gods. And in this corner, the mistress of all battle strategy, the lunar lady of battle, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge, she who knows all and sees all. The goddess who guides all Greek heroes to victory. She invented the craft of weaving and is considered the greatest weaver in all the lands. She helped Hercules with his 12 labors. She helped Perseus figure out how to defeat Medusa. She helped Odysseus on his adventures and Jason in building his magical ship. In other words, she's one of the most benevolent gods of her pantheon. And one of the most beautiful gods to ever pick up a sword. She carries with her the mighty Aegis gauntlets, remnants of Zeus' mighty shield, and the mighty Aegis sword. Her name is Athena. A large pair of bright eyes appeared in the sky over the arena. The flapping of wings sung loud and the beast in the sky descended. Hoot! The cooing of a large owl echoed and riding on the back of the large beast was none other than Athena herself. The Greeks all erupted into another round of applause for the Greek goddess. The lights in the arena returned. Tsukuyomi and Athena stared at each other, and Tsukuyomi drew his blade from its sheath. Athena, you are more beautiful than the rumors give you credit for. I wish we could have met under different circumstances. I would have loved to have shared a drink with you, but I can't afford to lose here. So, I'll be taking your head. Tsukuyomi spoke. He raised his blade and pointed at Athena's throat. I the same. I have heard stories of your might, but that will not matter here. No one in Greece can match my blade. Not even the moon itself. Athena replied. Then let's get this started. Totsuka blade form 3, Suzumashi Nishiki. Tsukuyomi raised his blade and swirled it in a circle in front of him. Benihiko. Tsukuyomi fired a volley of large needle-shaped blades at Athena. Athena's eyes widened and she raised her blade. She began deflecting as many of them as she could, with both her sword and her bracers. Tsukuyomi smirked at the speed which Athena blocked his attack. The attack was meant to be a quick kill move, using the numerous blades to confuse the opponent and strike them in vital spots. But Athena had managed to block them all. Impressive, now it's my turn. Athena spoke. Moon breathing first form. Dark moon evening palace. Athena raised her blade and slashed in a singular horizontal, crescent shape. From her slash came numerous blades shaped like a crescent moon. The blades rushed towards Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi jumped backwards while deflecting the many crescents, unaware that Athena had leapt into the sky above him. Once the blades ended, Tsukuyomi looked back up to see Athena above him. 16th form, moonbow, half moon. Athena slashed downwards at Tsukuyomi, creating a barrage of slashes that crashed down on the man and cratered the ground below. Tsukuyomi managed to block the attacks, but he still felt the weight of the blows pushing him down, and the attacks only got stronger the closer Athena's sword got to him. Yeah, Athena shouted. She slammed her blade down on Tsukuyomi's. The clash emanated a vicious aura in the arena, and the two vanished. They were moving at speeds not many could follow. The gods in the crowd watched in awe as they followed their afterimages. Every time they would reappear, they would clash with each other's swords. Whoa, I never knew Auntie Athena was so fast, Diana uttered. Of course, she is. Her small frame isn't to scoff at. She doesn't possess the sheer power that Tsukuyomi has, but she does exceed his speed. That's how she's always been able to best her foes. Her speed and agility. I'd say even amongst the gods, she is the third fastest. Behind only Hermes and I. Poseidon explained. Really? You mean she's faster than Hades and Zeus? Diana asked. Absolutely. In terms of sheer brute force, Hercules is the strongest, following him is Zeus and Hades, then myself with Athena and Artemis being last. But in terms of speed, Hermes, myself, Athena, and Artemis take the lead. That's not to say that Zeus and Hades aren't fast. They are. But it's about our fighting styles. Zeus prefers to use his brute strength and his lightning to overpower his opponents. I prefer to utilize my entire body. Blame my Spartan training for that? Poseidon explained. So, Auntie Athena is going to win? Diana asked. I don't know. Tsukuyomi is strong. He might just be able to fight me. His attack from earlier was only the third form, that means he has other tricks up his sleeve. Only time will tell if Athena has what it takes to win, Poseidon stated. Diana's brow furrowed, she had grown close with both Artemis and Athena. They were her family, and she definitely didn't want to lose either of them. Come on, Auntie. You can do it. Diana shouted. Athena down below was beginning to feel the pressure. She had Tsukuyomi beat in speed, but the man was strong. Stronger than anything she's fought in a long time, and his reaction time was remarkable. Lady Athena, you are so beautiful. Your swordplay is amazing. You are definitely worthy of your title. Tsukuyomi praised Athena honestly. Among his kind he respected strength and honor above all else and cared very little of where you came from. To show respect for your skill, allow me to crush you with the full might of my blade. Bankai, Suzumashi Suishiki, in Makoragi. Tsukuyomi placed his hand on his blade and created multiple small moons. He then shot them out past Athena to every corner of the arena and they expanded into a dark dome. What is this? I can't hear a thing. And it's dark. Athena thought. She looked around frantically trying to figure out what had happened and then it came, a sharp searing pain in her arm. Ack! Athena shouted. Blood spurted out from her arm and for a brief moment her senses returned. Inside this dome, the world is mine. This dome robs you of all senses, sight, sound, smell. Tsukuyomi spoke. He leaned close to Athena and whispered in her ear that it was over. Tsukuyomi went to cut the woman down, only for Athena to suddenly spin around and kick the man in his neck, sending him skidding across the ground. What? How? Tsukuyomi asked. He looked closer at Athena and saw her eyes were glowing. You had me concerned there for a moment. You think you can rob me of sight? She who sees all? Athena asked. Her eyes had changed from her normal pupils into those of an owl. Owls have the best vision in the darkness and can see clearly, a trait Athena shares with them. You underestimate me too much, Tsukuyomi, but I have to admit, this is impressive. Had you used this on any of my kin you might have won just now, but against me it's useless. Moon breathing 14th form, catastrophe crescent moon. Athena began slicing wildly, creating a vortex of crescent-shaped blades that cut up each of the moons around the dome, destroying them and freeing Athena of Tsukuyomi's trap. Up in the stands the Shinto gods were in disbelief. What? No way, Susanoo exclaimed. She broke out of it. But how? Amaterasu asked. She was just as perplexed as her brother was. It's easy. Makabashi spoke. The lady who sees all with the eyes of the owl. She has the ability to see through any and all darkness, no matter how dense. A good matchup against someone like Tsukuyomi. The man spoke. Back in the arena, Tsukuyomi was panting. That kick hit him hard. I see, Lady Athena, that was quite the surprise. You're the only person who has ever broken out of that. I guess Suzumashi isn't going to work on you. Tsukuyomi spoke. I didn't want to reveal this here. But against you, I just might have to. Tsukuyomi spoke. He then raised his sword up in front of his face and stared at Athena. What is he up to now? Athena asked herself. She watched his movements closely. Tsukuyomi stood still and suddenly an image of a moon appeared behind him. Tatsuka blade form 1, Senbonzakura. Tsukuyomi's blade suddenly started to fade away into petals of cherry blossoms, shocking Athena. What? Where'd his blade go? Diana asked. Poseidon didn't know how to answer. He was still trying to process the blade disappearing himself. He scoured the arena looking for any signs of a trick and then he spotted it. That's deadly. The blades are everywhere. Poseidon spoke. What do you mean? Diana asked. The sword turned into the flower petals. The moonlight from that moon he created is reflecting off of them in a way that hides the blades and makes them appear as nothing more than flower petals. His illusions are deadly. Poseidon explained. Poseidon looked closely and could see that Athena was having trouble understanding it as well. Athena looked closely at the flower petals that emerged from his blade and then saw them. The tiny sharp blades. It would seem she's figured it out as well. Poseidon stated. Haaa, moon breathing 2nd form. Pearl flower moon gazing. Athena shouted and swung her sword in several crescent-shaped slashes and started deflecting the many small blades that circled her. However, she could not deflect them all and felt a large gash appear across her back. Is that the best you can do? Athena shouted. As a matter of fact, Tsukuyomi stated. He then lunged towards Athena with his blade and tried to cut her across the calf. Athena managed to block the strike, but that left her open and one of the flower petals cut her arm. Athena grunted and rolled along the ground and slashed at Tsukuyomi's back only for a wall of flower petals to block the strike. Tsukuyomi leapt away from the woman, getting more distance between them. You should yield. You should realize by now this battle's over. Tsukuyomi told the woman. Never. Athena huffed. She was getting tired and fast. Having to watch the many blades around her and Tsukuyomi was beginning to take its toll on her. Everyone knew she wouldn't last much longer. I have my pride as the goddess of battle strategy on the line. My people are counting on me to bring home a win. I can't let them down. Athena exclaimed. I'll die before I yield. I see. That's too bad. I would have loved to have that drink. Tsukuyomi spoke. He raised his hilt and the flower petals returned to form his blade once more. I'll have you know there are many forms to my Tatsuka blade. Forms meant for different kinds of combat, but each and every single one of them focuses on some kind of illusion. Senbonzakura is the deadliest. As a sign of respect, I will use my full power to crush you, Athena. Know that as your life slips away that I have the highest respect and honor for you, great goddess. Bankai, Tsukuyomi exclaimed. He turned his blade upside down and dropped it towards the ground. Athena watched in confusion as the blade suddenly fell into a portal in the ground. The sky turned dark again and suddenly a bunch of large blades began forming from the ground up. Athena watched in horror as the blades began surrounding her on all sides. Scatter Senbonzakura Keijoshi, Tsukuyomi commanded. The blades all turned into cherry blossoms and started circling Athena. Athena saw the attacks and tried to block them, but the instant she was overcame by the thousands of multiplying blades. It's over. Poseidon spoke. What? Diana asked. Huh. Athena gasped. She felt blood trickling down her face and suddenly her entire body burst open with large gashes, causing blood to splatter all over the arena. Athena dropped to the ground, unconscious, and Tsukuyomi sheathed his blade. It's over. Tsukuyomi stated. Huh. The announcer asked. Oh, having finally been able to see what was happening, the announcer dropped down into the arena. The winner of the match by way of knock, Tsukuyomi. Ah. The Shinto gods erupted into applause while the Greek gods looked down in sadness to see Athena in such a defeated state. If you manage to survive, I hope we can meet again, warrior goddess. Tsukuyomi spoke, he then started walking away. What? The announcer exclaimed. Unbelievable. Poseidon whispered. Tsukuyomi turned back to the woman in shock. She had managed to get back to her feet and was using her blade to hold herself up. I'm even more impressed. Tsukuyomi exclaimed. He went to draw his sword but stopped when he looked at the woman. I see, he stated. Poseidon stood up from his seat and Diana turned to him. What is it? Diana asked. She's out cold. Nothing keeping her standing but her sheer willpower alone. Poseidon explained. Down in the arena, Athena's eyes were glazed over, and blood covered her face. She was unconscious. Poseidon raised his hand, and a pool of water came into the arena and covered Athena. Slowly her wounds began to close. She wasn't healed completely, but her life was out of danger for the time. Once her bleeding was stopped, Poseidon lifted Athena up into his arms and stared at Tsukuyomi, who still had his hand on his blade. Poseidon ignored the man and then turned and walked out of the arena. Winner of the second round, Tsukuyomi. Time, 30 minutes. Winning move, Senbonzakura Keijoshi. Chapter 62, War of the Gods. Intermission. The Greek gods were feeling the stupor over Athena's crippling loss. Damn, didn't think she'd lose. That Tsukuyomi's dangerous. I wonder what the other two can do. Ares spoke. This will be trickier than I first imagined. We have to acknowledge it. The Shinto are strong, Zeus stated. Lightning crackled around his body as he looked down at the poor state of his daughter. The next fight will begin soon. I promise, I'll return the favor in kind. Hercules spoke. I know you will, son. But be careful. Bishamonten is known as one of the 7 lucky gods, but he is also the one who doles out punishment amongst his pantheon. Zeus explained. Don't worry, father, leave it to Hercules. I know, father. Wish me luck. Hercules spoke. He then walked out of the chambers and headed towards the arena. On the other side of the arena in the Shinto chambers. Yeah, amazing job, Tsukuyomi. Way to put those Greeks in their place. Ibisu, of the 7 lucky gods shouted. Yes, well done, brother. I never doubted you for a moment. Susanoo spoke. He walked up to Tsukuyomi and healed his brother's bleeding arm. Thank you, brother. She was quite a powerful foe. She was able to see through everything. Tsukuyomi explained. But you came out victorious, nevertheless. Well done, Tsukuyomi. Amaterasu said to her brother. Amaterasu, you should be careful. Tsukuyomi suddenly spoke. What do you mean? She asked. Poseidon. When he entered the ring, everything changed. I felt his presence. He's powerful, sister. Much more than I imagined. Had he been the one to fight me, I most certainly would have lost that battle. Tsukuyomi explained. And you should be careful too, brother. If Poseidon is the bar, then Hades should be just as problematic. If you aren't careful, you could both end up dead. Tsukuyomi warned. Susanoo and Amaterasu both took the warning of their brother to heart as they knew he wasn't one to joke around when it came to battle. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, it's your turn. Amaterasu stated as she turned towards the 7 lucky gods. Bishamonten. Your opponent is Hercules, the god of strength. Show them your might and crush their golden boy. Bishamonten growled and turned and walked out of the room with his 7 gods behind him. Back to the Greek chambers, Poseidon was currently sitting with Athena as she rested from her match. Not going to come watch Hercules fight? Diana asked. Yeah, just want to make sure I didn't miss any injuries. I can't fix everything, but I can help keep any scars off and wounds sealed. Poseidon replied. Hard to believe she lost. Diana spoke. Ever since I was a little girl, all I've ever seen is Auntie Athena win. Yeah, there were times when I saw her struggle with Auntie Artemis, but never have I seen her this hurt. It's hard to see. I know, sweetheart. But this is what a battle between 2 gods looks like. This could be any one of us lying here in this tournament. Poseidon told the girl. But not you, right, Papa? Diana asked. You won't lose, right? Poseidon stood up and hugged the young woman. I can't promise you that, princess. I'm sorry, but I will do my best. Poseidon replied. They hugged in silence while the screams from the arena above rang out. Come on, let's go see Hercules do what he does best. Poseidon spoke. Diana wiped her eyes and nodded, following her father out of the chamber while Athena rested. Chapter 63, War of the Gods. Hercules vs Bishamonten? Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Tsukuyomi and Athena sure did put on quite the show, their skill and grace were a beauty to behold. But now it's time? In this corner we have the luck of the gods. The man who's known as the god of punishment and luck. The Shinto brawler. Bishamonten? Let's go Bishamonten. Dole out your punishment. The gods from the Shinto all cheered once more. Their fresh victory over the Greeks have boosted their morale once more. Tenchu, 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 Tenchu. The 7 lucky gods descended into the arena on their golden ship, and standing on the mast was Bishamonten himself. Arms crossed and ready to fight. He leaped from the ship as it hovered over the arena and landed in the arena, causing it to crack once more. And in this corner, the golden boy of the Greeks himself. The man who conquered the 12 labors, slayed the Nemean lion, beat the Hydra, slayed the Gorgon, the man who shot out the sun, the man who took Atlas' place and held up the sky, the son of Zeus and the god of strength, Hercules. Spreading out into the arena were lions of all types, and behind them, dressed with his lion skin pelt on, was Hercules. In his right hand was his mighty club. Strong and ready, Bishamonten and Hercules began pacing towards each other. Then with one strong burst of energy, they exploded towards one another. Hercules and Bishamonten butted heads together. The force from their blow sent out a shockwave that filled the arena. What power? 'Tis mightier than mine own, Thor exclaimed. He brought Mjolnir up to block the force of the shockwave from hitting him, while the other gods did more or less the same. The only ones not affected by this burst of power were those who ruled over their pantheons. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Do you feel that power? Shiva asked. Do you think they could beat you, Shiva? Indra asked. Not a chance. But still very impressive. The man replied. It looks like Bishamonten is going all out. Oh, what a wonderful time to be alive, Buddha exclaimed. He sat next to the Hindu gods and munched on his snacks in excitement. Over in the Greek stands, Poseidon was admiring the strength of the 2 men below. What a show-off. Poseidon sneered. It looks like this is going to be another long one. What do you mean? Diana asked. That Bishamonten is powerful enough to withstand a head-on blow from Hercules. That's an impressive feat for any man, Poseidon explained. Down in the arena, Hercules and Bishamonten were still pushing against one another, attempting to overpower the other. Well, met Bishamonten. But you can't defy the might of Hercules. Hercules grabbed Bishamonten's arms and tried to pick him up, but the Shinto brawler planted his feet into the ground and refused to budge. Bishamonten leaned back and headbutted Hercules again, but the Greek refused to budge. Both men refused their opponent the satisfaction of moving backwards. So, that's how it's going to be? Fine. Hercules loves a game of chicken, Hercules exclaimed. Hercules and Bishamonten took a step towards one another and both men punched the other in the face. The blows sounded like bolts of lightning striking against hard metal. But despite the power, neither man moved. Instead, they reeled back and punched each other in the face again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Over and over they repeatedly punched each other in the face. No martial arts, no skill, just a straightforward and simple brawl. A battle to see whose body would buckle first. Who would break the other? Would the mountain of a man, Hercules, crush the Shinto brawler? Or would the fist of the heavens smash this mountain into pieces? What a display of power. Both men renowned for the strength of their fists. We should also praise the durability of their bodies. Odin spoke. Do you see this, sons? Odin spoke to both Loke and Thor. This is what a battle between 2 gods of strength looks like. You'll be fighting them both someday. So, make sure to memorize them both. Yeah, Loke replied. Ouch. Loke spoke as Thor slapped him in the back of the head. Of course, father. Thor replied. Over with the Greeks, Diana was watching the battle unfold between the 2 gods and was confused. Father, a question. Diana spoke. Yes, dear. Poseidon asked. Why isn't Hercules using his mace? Wouldn't that give him the advantage? Diana asked. And rightfully so, because Bishamonten isn't using a weapon. He challenged Hercules to a simple brawl and Hercules accepted the challenge. Bishamonten wishes to prove himself Hercules better. And what better way to do that than to beat him at his own game? It may seem like a simple boring fight, but if you look closer, those 2 men have achieved a state not many can say they have. Poseidon explained. What's that? Diana asked. Look closer. Each time their fists meet each other, sparks fly. They have attained a state of pure instinct. They aren't holding back. They aren't using tricks or illusions. Just plain old-fashioned fist to fist. Each glob of blood that hits the ground is a testament to their power. And look at how they're smiling. They're both true men. Poseidon explained. Ah, Hercules roared. He slammed his fist into Bishamonten's jaw and then his gut. Bishamonten replied by headbutting Hercules in his chin and then slamming both of his fists down on the man's shoulders. Hercules grunted and punched Bishamonten in his gut and then grabbed him by the head and kneed him in the face. Bishamonten's head snapped up and he headbutted Hercules again. Both men were bleeding from their nose and mouths, heavily. Their bodies were covered in bruises from all of the punches they had suffered. This fight was straight to the point, no holds barred fisticuffs. The loser would be whoever fell on their back first. Both men were powerful in their own rights and refused to give in. For a long solid hour, both men pummeled one another. For an hour they grappled, never stopping even for a moment. This was the longest fight amongst the gods that anyone had ever seen. And no matter who won, both men would return to their pantheons as warriors worthy of the utmost respect. But the time would come when eventually one of these brave and bold men would crumble. Hey, Hercules shouted as he punched Bishamontan in his face. Bishamontan stumbled backwards, but quickly came back and punched Hercules in his face in turn, making Hercules stumble. Hercules caught himself and returned the blow again, punching Bishamontan in his black and blue chest. Bishamontan grabbed the spot where he was hit in agony, the bones underneath his skin beyond broken. Hey, Hercules roared. He rushed Bishamontan one more time and Bishamontan readied himself. The two men reeled back and with all their remaining might punched each other in the face. The force of the blow was like a hurricane. The shockwave blew away the floor of the arena. The two men stood there in silence. But eventually something happened. They both began falling backwards. They inched closer and closer to the ground, with their fists still high in the air. Thud. The sound of Bishamontan's back hitting the ground broke the silence in the arena. Hercules, however, was nearing the ground himself. However, just before his back touched it, Hercules grit his teeth and exploded back up straight. Hercules panted and gasped for air as pain surged through his body. Hercules raised his fist to the sky and roared. And there we have it, folks. The winner of the match, Hercules. The Greek gods applauded their fighter for his victory. However, they weren't the only ones to cheer. The Egyptians, the Norse, the Celtic, all of the gods, even the Shinto, all cheered for the performance of the two Brillic men. Hercules grinned and looked down at his opponent. Thank you for the fight. I look forward to the next one. Bishamontan. Hercules spoke. He then collapsed onto the ground face first. Not even in his tired state would he allow his back to touch the ground. Winner of round 3, Hercules. Time 4 hours. Winning move, fist to the face. Comment. 14 comment. Chapter 64, War of the Gods? Part 8. The Battle of the Gods raged on. With Ares and Hercules both winning their rounds, they put the gods of Greece ahead of the Shinto gods 2-1. Apollo as well managed to overwhelm the lightning demon god Rajan. But things wouldn't continue so smoothly for the Greeks. Triton lost horribly to the demon god Sujin, losing his left arm in the process. But the Greeks' losses didn't stop there. Fujian and Hermes also had their match. Theirs were a race, much different than the others. And in the end the messenger god and the god of wind tide, both crossing the finish line at the exact same time. The next match would be Artemis vs Takeminakata. This one was also different from the others as it wasn't a direct fight between hunters, but a hunt itself. Who could hunt the most creatures within a time period? Artemis and Takeminakata both started at one side of the arena and in front of them was a forest, packed with multiple mythical creatures. Dragons, unicorns, serpents, and more. Once the sun set the two hunters were released into the thick forest and began their hunt. Artemis was the first to make a kill, taking down a unicorn with one arrow that pierced straight through the creature's throat. A quick clean kill that racked up 20 points. It was quite the catch, but Takeminakata wasn't far behind. In the end their hunt came to a conclusion with 2 big kills each. The Greek goddess Artemis who managed to kill a dragon king, and Takeminakata killed the serpent king and a 9-tailed fox. The result of their hunt ended with a draw, meaning that the two teams were going into the next round with the Greeks leading by 1. The next round would be a carefully watched one as it would be the goddess of the sun vs the god the sea. Alright folks, what a back and forth tournament we've had. And 2 consecutive draws. Oh boy, the announcer spoke. Within the Shinto waiting room, the Shinto were beginning to become restless. Damn it, we needed that last one to tie this up. And now we're stuck at a disadvantage. What is wrong with you lot? Makabashi asked. What is wrong with us? You are the one who suggested we go to war with the Greeks. Because of you, Hachiman and Rajan are dead. Bishamontan is barely hanging on by a thread, and we still haven't even faced the big guys yet. We've suffered because of your pointless war. So don't you dare ask what is wrong with us. Susanoo shouted at the dark god. The two gods got in each other's faces and seemed like they were about to come to blows. Who do you think you are talking to, you miserable little? Makabashi was speaking. His dark tendrils began flaring and his sharp teeth flashed in Susanoo's face. But before either man could act, a blade made of pure fire separated them both. Makabashi, need I remind you, whose presence you're in? Amaterasu asked. Susanoo is my brother. If you pick a fight with him then you're picking a fight with me. I'd advise you to remember that. And as far as this little tournament goes, we still have a chance to pull things back. After all, I am going next. And I will not lose. Amaterasu stated as she walked out of the room. You better not. Makabashi replied. I have too much riding on this to have it lost because you wanted a bloodless battle, Amaterasu. If you lose, I swear I will kill you. Makabashi thought to himself. All of this, everything that had happened from 200 years ago that started the transgressions between the Greek and the Shinto had all been Makabashi's doing. And now at the cusp of getting what he wanted, he was losing. And that angered him. Back to the arena. And with that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the mightiest of the 3 siblings. The dynamic Lady of the Sun. The most sought-after woman in all of Japan. Amaterasu. The heat in the arena began rising and the stands themselves began to melt. Do you feel that heat? It looks like we're about to bear witness to Lady Amaterasu's dance of fire. This is it. This is where we take it. No one can stand up to Lady Amaterasu's flames. And coming in from Greece, this man's legend has only increased. Rumors say this man was once human and has taken the place of a god. This man is the god of the seas in Greece. Poseidon. Chapter 65, War of the Gods? Amaterasu vs Poseidon? I've been waiting for this since this started. Poseidon spoke. He was currently bent over relacing his boots. Looks like it's finally your turn. Are you ready? Hades asked. Yes, Poseidon. Are you ready to prove yourself to the rest of the gods? They think you a thief who simply stole his position. What say you? Zeus asked. Poseidon turned towards the man and scowled. Doesn't matter what they think. All that matters is I'm going to win, right? Poseidon replied. Exactly. Zeus stated. Poseidon picked up his heavy trident and started walking towards the door to the arena. I will win. All right. So don't worry, this will be over, but you know it. Poseidon looked back and gave a soft nod to his young daughter. He then turned back and walked out of the room to head to the arena. And in this corner, Poseidon. The Greek side of the stadium exploded into a round of cheers for one of their big gods. The arena door burst open, and a rapid vortex of water surged into the arena and began washing out the flames that Amaterasu had ignited on the arena floor. Much to her surprise, water surrounded the sun goddess on all sides and completely filled the arena. All but one small circular part of the ring remained above the sea. How can this be? My flames were put out. Amaterasu asked in shock. The waves of water parted and rose into two large walls above the ring, and walking through the middle of them was her opponent, Poseidon. Poseidon walked into the center of the ring and the water fell back to the ground. It's time. Let's see what the new god of the sea can do. Thor, Loke. Make sure you both watch this fight closely. You as well, Balder. I want to know any and all weaknesses these two have. Odin spoke. Yes, father. Yes, sir. Odin had commanded both his boys and his most trusted guard to make sure to keep a close eye on the new god of Olympus, to determine whether or not his strength posed a threat to Asgard. Or not. Well, Poseidon, if that's your name, why don't you go ahead and surrender now and make this easy for all of us? We don't want any more unnecessary deaths, do we? Amaterasu asked. No, we don't. Poseidon replied. Amaterasu pulled out her sword. It was a long sword, much like Susanna's kusanagi and much different from what you would see in Japan. On the hilt of the blade was a golden orb, and in the middle of the orb was a mini-sun. The hilt itself was red and white like the flare of the sun, and the blade was a bright golden color with a red dragon etched onto the blade. It was as remarkable as she was. Tsukuyomi was right. Amaterasu thought. Just being in the same arena as him is making me sweat. His pressure is unbelievable. Amaterasu gripped the hilt of her sword tightly and swallowed hard. No point in turning back now, Amaterasu muttered. She sprung forward and leapt into the air. She raised her sword up above her head and a trail of fire erupted from the blade. Falling inferno. Amaterasu slashed downwards and a sharp trail of fire hurtled its way to Poseidon. Poseidon replied by twirling his trident around. A swirl of water rose from the blade's tips and Poseidon stabbed at the fire, stopping it before it could touch him with ease. But Amaterasu's attack didn't finish. She was still falling towards him with her blade aimed right for his head. Poseidon inhaled and exhaled a bursting jet of water from his mouth, catching Amaterasu in flight and holding her at bay. Poseidon then channeled a torrent of lightning into the stream of water and sent Amaterasu flying. Gah! Amaterasu grunted. Amaterasu slid along the ground. She used her sword to help slow her momentum lest she falls into the water around the ring. Amaterasu relaxed to catch her breath, a mistake she didn't know she made. Poseidon's grand entrance served him more than just to look cool. It filled the arena with his strongest weapon. Poseidon jumped backwards and landed on the water and slowly sank into it. Suddenly the water started expanding and encircling around Amaterasu. The water was dark, and she couldn't see through it. The water masked Poseidon's movements perfectly. Amaterasu tried listening closely for the sound of movement in the water, trying to find any deviation in its rhythm. And then just as she was beginning to feel comfortable, Poseidon exploded from the water like a bullet train and tabbed at her with his trident. Amaterasu managed to slightly dodge the attack, but Poseidon still managed to stab into the side of her stomach. Poseidon himself quickly raced back into the water and repeated this process, like a missile. Amaterasu was feeling the pressure. Trying to predict his movements and actually defending against them was proving a difficult task for her, and Poseidon had shown proficiency with lightning and water-based attacks. Damn, I can't keep up with his movements. I need to get some leverage. Amaterasu leapt into the air and started using heat to keep her suspended in the air, allowing her to have a better image of her surroundings. This way, I can see him coming no matter which direction he's coming from. Amaterasu thought to herself. Come on out. I can see you now. Amaterasu shouted. The water dome began to shrink back down, and in the center of the arena stood Poseidon. He raised his hands and clapped them together. The water started changing shape. Super Shark Bomb! Poseidon shouted. The water changed shape and large shark the size of the Meg rushed straight towards Amaterasu. The sun goddess and the gods in the arena were all shocked by the massive emergence of the creature. Will Amaterasu be able to defend against the onslaught of the sea god? Find out next time on Dragon Ball. Wait a minute, Chapter 66, Surprise! The shark-shaped attack launched itself towards Amaterasu. The sun goddess prepared herself. She raised her sword and slashed the attack in half right down the middle, causing it to split and rush past her on both sides. Ha, was that the best you could see, god? That was pathetic. Amaterasu gloated. though secretly she was afraid of the attack and had just gotten lucky enough that it was slow. Poseidon smirked and raised his hand and slowly brought it down. Amateresa's eyes widened and she turned around. 1,000 sharp blades formed above her head and with a flick of Poseidon's wrist all started rushing down towards her. Shit. Amateresa rushed to cover herself with a shield of fire, swinging her sword rapidly to create a wall of flames that just managed to shield her. However, she left herself open and Poseidon kicked her in the side of her chest, sending her crashing right into the water. Poseidon followed the woman and leapt into the water after her. Amateresa desperately struggled to get back to the arena floor but was stopped multiple times by Poseidon, smashing into her and forcing her deeper and deeper into the water. Yield, girl. You cannot win this match. Poseidon told the woman. I will not. The faith of the people rides on my blade. Amateresa replied. I won't lose. Poseidon backed away from the woman as her body started to row hotter. A bright flame emitted from her mouth that slowly started spreading all over her body. These flames were bright orange and were turning white at the end. The covered Amateresa's body and the water they were both in started to boil away. Poseidon retreated from the water and watched, impressed by her heat, as Amateresa rose from the water. Nishi Zenjutsu Gokui. Amateresa shouted. Her heavenly flames erupted into massive pillars of fire. Poseidon smirked as he expected no less from the Lady of the Sun. The heat from her body began to evaporate the very metal from which the stands of the arena were made of. An impressive feat, a feat which all gods in the arena, even Poseidon himself, remarked as Amateresa entering the realm only the strongest of gods can attain. Amateresa, your desire to protect the hopes and dreams of your people have pushed you beyond a point not many gods have yet to attain. Welcome, young lady, to the realm of the heavens. In honor of your newfound strength, allow me to crush you with the full power of the deep. Poseidon raised his trident and took a step towards Amateresa. The sun goddess followed his movements to the exact moment he stepped forward, only to realize she was watching an after image. Her eyes popped open when she spotted Poseidon crouched down in front of her, thrusting towards her stomach with his trident. Amateresa quickly spun her sword down and deflected most of the strike, however she was not quick enough to stop it completely and the end blade of the trident ran through her stomach. Poseidon, however, was not unfazed by this exchange. These flames, they're almost as hot as Hades. Poseidon thought. He felt the hilt of his blade beginning to burn, despite the fact that it was naturally a heat insulator and was still covered by his water. Poseidon couldn't help but smile at his excitement, something even those in the stands took notice of. Wow, when's the last time he smiled like that? Zeus asked. He was amused by the fight before him. Poseidon seemed to be playing with his opponent at first, but now was thoroughly enjoying himself. I believe it was when you two fought, Hera replied. She herself had eased up on her nephew over time and came to respect the strength that was Poseidon. Oh yes, that damn bird girl of his. I forgot. Zeus exclaimed. In the past, Zeus had grown jealous of Poseidon's betting of the Phoenix and attacked him upon his return to Mount Olympus. During that battle the two men nearly destroyed Olympus itself. Yes, it was quite a thing to see. And even now, he looks so alive. Quite the battle junkie we have. First you Zeus and now Poseidon. Ha 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 ha. I haven't had so much fun in years. Hades laughed. Nor I, Ares stated. The Greek gods all laughed as they watched their representative battle. But none truly could comprehend where this lust for glorious battle came from. None but the youngest, Diana. Do you know why? Diana asked. Why what? Hades wondered. Why he fights like that? She replied. No, I have no idea. Do you? Zeus wondered. It's in his blood. Though we've long since abandoned the title, we can never forget where we came from. Spartans enjoy fights like this more than anything else in the world. A true battle where we can push past our limits as well as our opponent's limits. Nothing excites us as much. My father told me there were only a handful of times in his life where he felt truly alive. When he first fought King Leonidas all those years ago, when he married and had us, and more recently when he went to China and fought their emperor. And all this time since then, he's looked for something. Someone to challenge him like that again. Diana explained. She watched her father form high in the stands and enjoyed seeing how happy he was to have found an opponent worth battling. Hey. Poseidon raised his trident and began swirling it around. Tell me, Amateresa, what is it you want in life? What pushes you? Why do you fight for your people? Poseidon asked. I have my reasons. I want to be able to strong enough to protect them, to guide them towards a better future, one where they can be safe and live their lives to the fullest without persecution and interference from petty gods. And to do that, I'll become the strongest, under the heavens and within them, Amateresa replied. She concentrated and the fire surrounding her body all engulfed her blade. When the smoke cleared, all that remained was a smoldering blade with black ash coming off of it. I don't have much energy left. I can't keep that form up for long and you are an opponent that I can't beat without it. So, this is me. All of me. I will give you everything I have. All of it. Into this one last strike. Will you accept it? Amateresa asked. Of course, my lady. Poseidon replied. He continued spinning his trident until finally the large torrent of water that had formed behind him turned into a shark. Shark Emperor, lightning bite strike. Poseidon muttered. His giant shark engulfed his trident and became a part of his hand. A torrent of black lightning surrounded the beast, and its eyes flashed red. The two gods stared at each other and then with one strong step, they exploded towards one another. Higashi Kyakujitsujin. Amaterasu thrust her sword forward and a pillar of flames erupted from the blade. Poseidon replied by thrusting his trident forward, the mouth of the shark opened, and the woe forces began battling against each other. Ah! Amaterasu shouted. She pushed with all of her might against Poseidon's trident, but even with her newfound strength, the water god was just too powerful. Amaterasu watched as her sword steadily shattered and Poseidon's trident came towards her. Poseidon himself watched as the girl, her face full of sorrow, closed her eyes and accepted his blade. However, just before he could run her through the chest, Poseidon aimed his blade down and instead pierced her abdomen. A serious injury, but not as fatal as running her directly through the chest would have been. The collision caused a massive explosion in the arena that forced the gods to brace themselves. When the smoke finally cleared, Poseidon was standing above Amaterasu's unconscious body. The Shinto gods all trembled in fear. Tsukuyomi and Susanoo both erupted into anger. They couldn't believe that their sister had lost. You fought well, sun goddess, I hope you survive. Until next time. Poseidon turned on his heels and walked out of the arena. Wow, what an amazing display. The winner of the match is Poseidon. Winner, Poseidon. Time limit, 10 minutes and 53 seconds. Finishing move, Shark Emperor Lightning Bite Strike. The Greek gods all cheered loudly over the victory of one of the strongest Shinto gods, knowing full well that the remaining two fights would be won just the same. However, on the Shinto side of things, while most of the gods all watched sadly as Amaterasu's unconscious body was being removed from the ring by the medics, Amatsu Makabashi's anger exploded. You lost it. You just cost me everything, you little son bitch. Everything I've been working so endlessly for, all of it is gone now, just because you wanted to save a few human lives. Makabashi clutched his blade, the grasscutter, with anger. His locked intently on the goddess. Aw you stupid bitch. Makabashi exploded from his seat in the arena right towards Amaterasu. Damn him. Tsukuyomi shouted. Tsukuyomi and Susanoo both took off after Makabashi to try and stop him, however, they were just slower than the dark god. Die. Makabashi shouted as he swung his blade down at Amaterasu. However, before he could deliver the death blow, his strike was intercepted by none other than Amaterasu's opponent, Poseidon himself. Poseidon twirled his trident around and deflected the strike forcing Makabashi backwards. The dark god growled and leapt at Poseidon with his sword raised to strike down at him. Poseidon parried this strike as well and stabbed at Makabashi, only for the god to block the strike with his blade and retreat. What are you doing, Poseidon? Why are you stopping me? Makabashi asked. All fighting is to be done in the matches, if you don't want to wait your turn, I'll be more than happy to take you on. Right now? Poseidon told the man. I'll kill you where you stand. Makabashi growled. You'll die trying. Poseidon replied. His demeanor cold and ruthless. His aura began seeping out and his bloodlust shot through the roof. So, much so that Tsukuyomi and Susanoo, who had tried to defend their sister suddenly felt as if death had grabbed hold of them. Well, look at this folks. We have an open challenge. Do the gods on each side accept this challenge? The announcer asked. He looked back and forth between the two pantheons. Zeus nodded. If Poseidon managed to kill Makabashi, that meant that when it came to their fight he would win automatically. And since Amaterasu was unconscious and being treated by the med team, that meant Tsukuyomi and Susanoo had the final word. And they both nodded. Alright, people, we have a new match. Makabashi vs Poseidon. Chapter 67, Poseidon vs Makabashi. Poseidon faced down Makabashi, and took the first move. He lunged forward and drove his trident for Makabashi parried the strike and lashed out at Poseidon with one of his dark tendrils. Poseidon exhaled a burst of water and sliced the tendril off. Poseidon spun his trident around and launched a vortex of water at Makabashi. Makabashi raised his blade and cut the stream of water in half and Poseidon appeared right in front of him and stabbed at him multiple times in a flurry. Makabashi raised his blade and started parrying each of the attacks that were launched at him but failed to notice Poseidon slip past him and attack once again. Poseidon moved so fast that he appeared to be in one place at once and started thrusting his trident at Makabashi from all sides, creating a dome around the god. Makabashi used his blade and a volley of tendrils to fight off all of the simultaneous strikes, even managing to land a few hits on Poseidon's body at the same time. What's the matter, dark god? I thought you were going to kill me where I stood? You aren't doing a very good job. Poseidon taunted. Erg? You arrogant Greek pig. Makabashi growled and waved his tendrils around in one solid line. Poseidon leapt over the attack and slammed his fist forward. The air in front of Makabashi cracked and the god was suddenly slammed into the ground. Poseidon moved to strike Makabashi with his trident, but the man managed to avoid the attack and slashed Poseidon clean across his chest. Yeah! Makabashi shouted. He was excited to have finally landed a solid hit on Poseidon. He began swinging his sword at Poseidon wildly, trying to keep the god off balance. Poseidon parried each of Makabashi's strikes with his trident, slowly backing up to get some space between them, but Makabashi wouldn't let up. So, Poseidon decided the only thing to do was move forward. Poseidon dropped his trident and Makabashi cut him from his shoulder to his hip. Poseidon grunted from the pain but continued forward nonetheless. He brought his trident back up and jammed it into Makabashi's stomach. Poseidon fired a bolt of lightning through the chaos god's body, sending him into shock and stunning him. Poseidon then raised his fist and drilled Makabashi in his face with an earthquake that slammed him into the ground. Poseidon raised his trident to the sky and dark clouds started forming above. What's going on? This feeling, it's ominous. Poseidon's really going all out now, Thor exclaimed. The Thunderer could feel the flow of lightning that Poseidon was summoning forward and could feel his mighty hammer attempting to leave his side. Do you want to taste the thunder, Mjolnir? Well, not this time, my friend. Thor told the hammer. The Thunderer wasn't the only one to feel the gathering of bolts in the sky. Zeus, the ruler of the Greek gods, and father of the skies, felt it too. You should brace yourselves. Zeus spoke. Why Zeus? What is it? Hera asked. Every Greek god turned towards the man who had stood up from his seat to prepare himself. I can feel it coming. The mother of all lightning bolts is gathering up above. He plans to finish this with one last blast. Zeus explained. The gods turned their attentions back to the dark clouds above and watched as black lightning flashed violently in the sky above. I've never tried using that much lightning at once. It could backfire badly. I hope you know what you're doing, boy, Zeus said to himself. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. This next attack would be the last. In Poseidon's favor by killing Makabashi, or by draining Poseidon of all his strength at once. Either way, this was it. Can you feel it in the air? The force of the lightning I've summoned forth. This is my specialty, granted to me by the elder Cyclopes. I command the true fang of the heavens, the bolt that first sparked the lightning. The fang pierces all that hide in the dark. None can hide from its light. Poseidon exclaimed. His trident was shooting and receiving bolts of lightning so fast that they appeared to not be moving at all. To most it looked as if it were a singular bolt raising into the sky, but to those who knew some couldn't even count how many times his trident had been struck. This was Poseidon's ultimate attack. A move that combined his weapon's durability and ability to redistribute kinetic energy with the thundering force of lightning. His trident. It's glowing black? Why? Loki asked in shock. What power is this? This question was shared by many gods in the arena. All were confused by what was happening with the sea god's weapon. What is this? What's happening? Makabashi asked himself. He struggled to free himself of Poseidon's hold, kicking and screaming and clawing to get away. He looked up in terror as the lightning above began to take shape of 3 dragons. What's the matter, Makabashi? Where did all this fear come from? Face your doom like a man, Poseidon exclaimed. He turned his trident towards the man below him and stabbed towards him. Dragon Emperors, eternal darkness. Poseidon's trident pierced Makabashi's chest and the 3 black dragons all struck the god at once. The resulting explosion obliterated the arena around them, forcing the gods to retreat a great distance to avoid getting caught up in the blast radius. What power! I've never seen lightning so powerful in all my life, Thor exclaimed. Hurry, we must see what happened, Zeus exclaimed. He and the rest of the gods all rushed back towards the explosion site. The smoke was heavy and clouded what was left of the arena, but when it cleared, they all saw who was remaining. Poseidon sat on a ruined stone with his clothes in tatters and his trident resting on his shoulder. Wah! Makabashi is gone. He obliterated every shred of him. Announcer, quickly announce his victory, Zeus demanded. He was still only concerned about winning the match. Oh, yeah, I'm the winner of the match, Poseidon, the announcer declared. Winner of the match, Poseidon. Winning move, Dragon Emperors, Eternal Darkness. Time limit, 5 minutes. Phew, that was something. You alright, Poseidon? Hades asked. Yeah, just think I might have overdone it a bit, Poseidon replied. Hades looked around and chuckled. A little bit? Well, congratulations anyway. You killed him, Hades stated. Yeah, I killed him, Poseidon replied. Except, I got this feeling that I'm missing something. I can't shake the feeling that I didn't kill him and yet I watched his body ripped apart myself. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. Poseidon wondered. He wanted to think he was wrong but something in his mind just wouldn't let him think otherwise. Anyway, we have one more match now, don't we? I believe it's your turn now, Hades. Poseidon spoke. That's right, the tournament isn't over yet, Hades replied. Well, we kind of don't have a stage anymore, but I guess we can do this right here. Ahem. Alright folks, with that banger out of the way, we have one last match. In this corner we have the Shinto god of the seas, the brother of the sun goddess and the moon god, the man believed to be the god of the earth itself, the slayer of the 8 tails Orokai, with his heavenly blade Kusanagi, Susanoo. And in this corner, we have the fiercest sun god of fire in all the lands, the man who rules over the deceased in the fiery halls of Tartarus, the eldest of the 3 brothers and the man directly responsible for stopping the Titans on his own. Hades? Hades and Susanoo both stepped forward. Hades removed his eyepiece and his coat and threw it to Poseidon. Are you ready? Hades asked Susanoo. Yes, I am. Susanoo spoke. He kneeled in front of Hades and spoke clearly. I yield. The Greek gods and the Shinto gods all looked at Susanoo for a solid moment, before the realization hit them. What? They all asked. Ha 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 ha. Hades couldn't help but chuckle as he threw his bident over his shoulder. Why are you giving up? Tsukuyomi asked. In all his lifetime he had never seen Susanoo give up on anything. It was a Greek who saved our sister. I am merely repaying the debt we owe, and there is no longer any reason to continue fighting. Our sister was completely outmatched by Poseidon. I wouldn't have had a chance against Hades, not for another 1,000 years maybe. It's time to bow out. Susanoo spoke. Well, you have it folks. With Susanoo yielding to Hades, we have a decisive winner. The battle goes to the Greek gods of Olympus, the announcer declared. Heh. Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades all grinned in victory. Yeah. The remaining Greek gods all celebrated their victory over the Shinto gods. And for good reason, each contest was more and more vicious and impressive than the last. Poseidon found himself surrounded by his peers on all sides, and while he smiled along with them, that feeling was still there, nipping at his mind. What if? Next time say goodbye to the gods, the journey on earth continues. Next time, enter Jesus Christ, chapter 68, till next time. The gods rested after the battles, taking their time to celebrate and enjoy the time of peace, as once they left this dimension, they would all go back to being enemies. Or at the very best people with similar goals. One group of people, however, that seemed to be up to no good, or more particularly a person who was up to no good, the eternal, Heracles. As the gods celebrated, Diana had gained the attention of quite a few of the gods, Thor, Rudra, Cuculain, and Heracles. Though she rejected each would-be suitor adamantly, Heracles continued pursuing the demigod until eventually she retreated to her father's room, to get away from the party. What is it, princess? Poseidon asked. Daddy, there's someone out there who keeps flirting with me. I told him over and over again to stop it, but he just won't quit. Diana exclaimed. She was angered and flustered. Well, forget about him. Look, just relax here with me while they party. When this is all over, we're heading back to our normal lives, or somewhat normal lives, and we're going to just forget about most of this. Okay. Poseidon spoke. Diana nodded and hugged her father. All right, she replied. Diana took a seat next to her father, and the two began talking about their lives, their experiences from the past couple hundred years and more. Meanwhile, the rest of the party-goers continued to enjoy themselves to the fullest extent. Thor and Hercules wrestled each other to find a winner, Susanoo and the Shinto made food from their country and served it to the others. Zeus, Odin, Ra, Shiva, and the other lords of the pantheons sat together and drank like old friends. And Hades simply enjoyed the teas from the other lands, testing each and every one. He in particular found the herbs from Japan to be the finest. These are all amazing. I must take some back to Tartarus with me. Maybe I could ask how they are grown. I'm sure Persephone wouldn't mind helping to grow them. She loves gardening. Hades stated as he continued sipping from his teacup. Hello, Hades. How are you enjoying your tea? Athena asked. She had finally awakened from her slumber and joined in on the party herself, despite her numerous bandages. Athena, should you be up right now? Hades asked. His concern for his niece not going unnoticed. I'm fine, uncle, but thank you. Athena replied. Well, I don't doubt your judgment. If you think you can handle it, then go ahead and enjoy yourself. And the tea is delicious, thank you for asking. Hades replied. Hades and Athena continued talking with each other, Hades himself making sure Athena knew what had happened after she was defeated. Until that is they were approached by a certain group. I see. That sounds like him indeed. Athena said to Hades. Excuse me, Greeks. Athena and Hades both turned towards their visitor and saw it was a blonde-haired man and a group of exquisite characters approaching. Ah, our good friends the Eternals. Would you like to join us? Hades asked. He extended a cup towards Icarus and smiled. Icarus, however, shoved the cup out of his hand, causing him to spill it. Thankfully, Hades used his magic to recover the cup and the tea, before it could hit the floor. We're not here for tea. Icarus spoke. Oh, well, what are you here for? Little boy, Hades asked. His soft and gentle smile turned malicious and evil. I'm looking for the huntress. You will tell me where she is now. Icarus demanded. Icarus, knock it off. We don't need to be making enemies. And besides, she already turned you down. The raven-haired woman spoke. I'm sorry, Lord Hades, my name is Circe, this Thena, Macquarie, Gilgamesh, Star Fox, Ajak, Druig, and this guy is Icarus. Circe explained. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintances. Please, young lady, join me, Hades spoke. No, sir, we don't want to impose. Circe replied. Nonsense. Someone with manners is always welcome at my table. Hades spoke. Thank you very much, Lord Hades. Circe replied. Look, I don't have time for this. Just tell me where the huntress Diana is. I must make her my own. Icarus demanded. He glared at Hades in his eyes flashing his heat vision as a threat, and Hades laughed. Oh, you're looking for my niece, are you? Very well. I'll take you right to her. Hades replied. Hades, are you sure? Athena asked. Of course, Athena. Follow me. Hades spoke. Icarus nodded and the group all followed Hades down towards the resting rooms. Hades hummed and sipped his tea happily along the way. Well, here you are. All you have to do is go through that door right there, Hades explained. He pointed to Poseidon's room and stepped aside for Icarus. Thank you, Greek. Now out of my way. Icarus spoke. He walked up to the door and knocked on it. Hades, isn't that? Athena was asking. Oh, hua, let's just be quiet for a moment and enjoy the show. Oh, Eternals. I would recommend you all get back and probably get ready to heal your friend. Hades spoke. What do you mean? Circe asked. Oh, you'll see. Hades replied. Open this door, now woman, or else. Icarus demanded. He grew tired of waiting, so he kicked the door in. 3.2.1 Hades counted down, and the moment he hit one, Icarus was sent flying out of the room by a bolt of lightning. He hit the wall and it cracked. Icarus. Circe shouted. Athena and Gilgamesh moved to help the man, but both of them were immediately burned by Hades' hellfire. Now I believe I told you guys to watch the show. Hades spoke. The Eternals looked at the man and felt a very ominous shudder run up their spines. Icarus was bleeding from his head, from the force of the blast. He tried getting to his feet and groaned. He managed to lift himself up, but the moment his heat vision flashed again, Poseidon shot out of the room and slammed his knee into the man's face. When will you take a hint? My daughter doesn't want you. Poseidon shouted. Icarus tried to punch him, only for his fist to be caught. Poseidon stretched it out and slammed his arm down on it, while thrusting his knee up at it, snapping his arm in place. Ah! Icarus shouted in pain. Poseidon kicked Icarus in his kneecap and broke it as well, and Icarus let out another blood-curdling scream. Don't come near my daughter again. Poseidon shouted. He slammed his fist down on top of the man's head over and over again. If you ever come near Diana again, I promise, I'll do much worse next time. Poseidon lifted Icarus up off the ground and let him drop to the floor in a bloody heap. Poseidon then turned his attention to the spectators in the hall and watched as Hades slowly clapped his way over to them both. Well done, brother. Quite the show you put on. Hades spoke. Make sure you remember it. Poseidon spoke. Not to Hades, no, but to the Eternals still watching from behind the veil of flames. Poseidon then turned and walked back into his room and slammed the door shut. Hades meanwhile leaned down and rubbed Icarus on his head. You should have drunk the tea. Oh well, come Athena. Hades spoke. He removed the veil of flames and started walking towards the woman. Let's leave the Eternals to clean up their friend. Until next time, take care now. Hades spoke. He waved his hand and Athena and he both vanished. Back with Poseidon. After a long and tiring day, he and his daughter both slept on a nice cot, enjoying their time of peace once more. For now, chapter 69, not a chapter. Hey guys, this is just a quick sidebar, while I'm working on the next chapter. I wanted to know if you guys had any questions or recommendations. For those curious, most of the current arc we're in right now won't pay off for a while. But the next legendary human we meet, of course, is already revealed. Jesus Christ. But who do you want to see after that? I plan on introducing the flying General Lubuledin, King Arthur, and Merlin the Sorcerer Supreme, Okada Suji and the Shinzengamai, Kojiro Sasaki, and my favorite Bennett du Paris, what's his mutant name, who can guess it, and Ensab Honor. And while we're thinking of questions, I got one for you guys. See, all fanfictions have some badass character with op abilities, like lightning manipulation, fire, darkness, light. But I've never seen anyone do something as simple as physical adaptation, the ability to grow stronger and evolve past your current strengths. Kind of like Darwin's abilities from the X-Men. But instead of gaining new powers, your body just grows. From being a baseline human, to peak, to beyond. It's a simple ability, like say you get shot and when you heal, your skin is denser and can withstand multiple bullets before it begins to do real damage. Or say when you punch something, and it breaks your hand. When your hand heals, it can withstand the previous force that broke it. Just something I was thinking about doing. Let me know what you think. Chapter 70, Faithful Meeting. Our next memory takes us to the land of the Jewish, in the first year the birth of Christ. Stories spread across the land of a virgin woman who was bound to give birth to the Savior and Messiah in Bethlehem. Did you hear? Those Christians are starting to spread news of their God impregnating a woman. He's to be the savior of all men apparently. Can you believe this, Poseidon? Hercules asked. Hercules, Ares, and Poseidon had joined together to get a drink when the news started spreading. Are you serious? The Christians? I haven't heard much from their religion or even met a god that claimed to be Christian. And now he's having a son? I think I might need to find this son of God. Sounds like this could be entertaining. Poseidon exclaimed. He took a swig from his mug and placed it back down on the table. Where are you going? Ares asked. To find the son of God. Poseidon replied. You nitwit, he hasn't been born yet. Nyaayayak. Poseidon fell face first onto the floor when he realized his mistake. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't really be able to do much if I find him now, would I? Poseidon got back up to his feet as Hercules and Ares laughed at him and dusted himself off. So, what are you going to do now, almighty god of stray children? Hercules asked. Poseidon glared at him, and Hercules started choking on his drink. It was a common joke among the Olympians that Poseidon had a habit of taking in children. All right then, I'll wait until he's grown. Besides, I've lived for over 400 years. What, 22 more, am I right? Poseidon replied. 22 years after the birth of Jesus. It's been 22 long years already. All right then. Time to pay Christ a visit. Poseidon rose from his chair on Olympus and descended from his cherished palace down to the mortal realm once more. A few years away had done him so good, and apparently Greece as well. The land of the Greek looked much different than the last time he saw it. My, how time flies, and what a new place the Romans have created for us. Such a shame Greek culture is falling. But that is one thing that will never change. Poseidon started walking towards the water, knowing that his target would never be found in his homeland. No, he needed to go to a different place. One he had only passed, but never actually set foot in. Poseidon traveled through the water, slowly, taking his time to just be as he did. And eventually he washed up on the shores of the Dead Sea, right near Jerusalem. All right, let's get to looking. Shouldn't be too hard to find the Son of God now, should it? Poseidon wondered. Poseidon started searching the lands of Jerusalem. He walked far and wide, he spoke to as many people as possible, and yet not one of them could tell him for certain where the son of God was. Only small hints and possibilities. Now Poseidon wasn't an expert tracker. He could hunt fairly well, but as far as tracking a person he had never met, even as a god, he couldn't do it. Poseidon marched the city of Bethlehem, the birthplace of the Lord and Savior, hoping to find him where he had been given life. But all that he found were whispers and rumors once more. Bah, more rumors. I'm beginning to think the guy doesn't exist. Poseidon exclaimed. He sat down on a bench and began drinking from his water gourd. One thing about being me, I don't have to worry about finding water. But these people seem to be struggling. Maybe I should find a place to give them a river. Poseidon stated. Hello sir, may I join you? Poseidon looked up from the floor and saw a man with long brown hair and a scruffy beard standing over him. Well, certainly. There's plenty of room for the two of us. Poseidon shifted on the bench and allowed the man to sit next to him. You don't look like you're from around here. The man stated. That's true. I'm not. I'm from lands far north of here. Poseidon replied. I see. You must have traveled a long way and yet you don't look the part. Most men are weary and tired from trips such as you describe. Can I ask you how you manage it? The man joked. Poseidon got a good look at the man, and he definitely seemed to be in quite decent shape. More so than the people he saw around him. Lots of sea water. Poseidon replied. Ahaha, you are a funny one. There isn't much water to go around this part of Jerusalem right now. We are suffering from a pretty bad drought. I've been trying to think of way to get the water flowing again, but I just haven't been able to figure it out. The man explained. Oh, I'm sorry. That must be rough. Poseidon replied. Yes, it is. This place is usually filled with life. But now it seems to have lost its luster. I came back when I heard it was in trouble to try and help it. The man explained. Why would you do that? It isn't your responsibility to be the one to fix this. Poseidon replied. Maybe not. But I want to. I can do it, I just need to think of a proper way that doesn't endanger anyone or the ecosystem. Something I should probably get back to. I hope you find what it is you're looking for, friend. I've enjoyed this little talk of ours. Hopefully we get the chance to meet once again. Until then, take care and safe travels. The man spoke, he shook Poseidon's hand and then got up from his seat and walked away. Poseidon watched the man in intrigue, taking in his every feature. What a strange man. But something about him feels calming. Poseidon spoke. He looked around the village and felt a deep sorrow from seeing the dying crops and fields. A drought, huh? Poseidon smirked and his eyes turned white. Storm clouds began appearing above him and rain poured down on the village. Rain. It's raining. It's a miracle? Thank you, O great Lord in heaven. Poseidon made it rain hard, harder than it ever had in Bethlehem. And that river should be taken care of by now as well. And so, it had. The storm Poseidon created destroyed the blockade that was keeping the water from flowing into the village, providing the people with water to bathe and fresh water to drink. Well, there goes my good deed for the day. Consider that a gift from a god, young man, whoever you are. Poseidon spoke. As he walked through the city of Bethlehem, young Jesus Christ marveled at the sudden rain clouds above. All it takes is a little faith in the beyond. He reached down and placed a small seed into the damp ground and covered it. May you grow strong and big. Chapter 71, The Way. After helping the people of Bethlehem, Poseidon continued to the city of Jerusalem, taking a small detour just outside the walls of the city in Zion. I've been walking for days now, and I still haven't met this Christ. I'm beginning to wonder if he's even real. Poseidon mumbled to himself. He was sitting on a rooftop above the city and was staring up at the sky in boredom. Whew, what a view. The sky seems so clear up here. Wouldn't you agree? Poseidon looked over and saw the same man he had met in Bethlehem climbing up to the rooftop. What are you doing here? It's not safe climbing up here, you know. Poseidon joked. He was honestly surprised to see the man. He did not think he would meet him again, let alone so soon. But is that not the adventure that is life? Taking risks when necessary. Especially when the yield is so beautiful. The man sat down on the tiled roof and pointed towards the setting sun. I guess so. But be careful not to get too risky, else you might end up being swallowed by the world itself. Poseidon stated. That is true, my friend. That is very true. But I know many would say being taken away by the things they enjoy would be a worthy end in their eyes. And I can respect that. He spoke. You're a strange man, you know that? I don't think I've met many men like you. Poseidon told the man. In all honesty, he was impressed. To have such worldly views at such a young age was something he wasn't used to. He had met 3 kings all of great worth, Leonidas, Caesar, and Qin Shi Huang, each man coming from a different era. And yet all were similar in many ways. But this man in front of him was different. He wasn't the charismatic leader, but more the devout citizen. A wise man beyond his years. Well, I don't see why. I am no different from you, the people below us, or even the animals and the plant life. We are all each sacred in our right. The man spoke. Poseidon let out a loud laugh. Why are you laughing? The man asked. Sorry, it's just I didn't expect that. All life is the same, is it? Then what about the ants below us? Are they sacred? Poseidon asked. But of course. Even the smallest of insects is important to the world. The ants help eradicate trash that is left behind. Spiders kill and eat the ants so that they don't overpopulate. Bees help spread seeds and help flowers grow. Snakes help deal with rodents, and cows help feed us. Do you see? We all have a part to play in the plan. No matter how small or insignificant it may seem, my friend. The man explained. The way his eyes sparkled with joy when speaking about such menial things intrigued Poseidon. He wanted to know so much more about this man in front of him. But his current goal was just as important to him. You really are a saint, you know that? I'll be a little honest with you. I have been alive far longer than anyone can realize. Many of my friends are gone. My first wife has been dead for years, and my second one, well, she had a higher calling to attend to. She still holds a special place in my heart, and I hope I do in hers. I have seen many of the joys that the world has to offer. And on the other hand, I have seen the horrors this world can offer. The darkness it holds. People murdering each other, their friends and families, all for the sake of coin or jealousy. Men beating their wives and children to death in rage. Wars started and ended for the sake of selfish kings. People starved, maimed, women raped, villages plundered, all in the name of some king's righteous cause. And it is at times like that I wonder why we allow it to continue to happen. But then I think about what it all really means. Free will. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. And it is the people who must want change. The people have to fight for their freedom. They can't simply wait around for someone to do it for them. Wherever I go, I help if I can. But I cannot do everything for them. I will not always be here to help them. If they cannot help themselves when necessary, then I fear the humans will not last much longer. Poseidon explained. He poured his heart out to this strange man on the roof, for what reasons he knew not. Only that he hoped the man would understand. There are many dangers in this world of ours and beyond. Would you believe there is a man out there who eats planets for power? Poseidon asked the man. Really? A man who eats planets? Well, he must have quite the appetite to be able to do that. The man joked. Yet here on this little ball of dirt we call Earth, we have something special. Even more so than that man. Or the others like him. We have heart. Poseidon exclaimed. The man smiled and let out a laugh of his own, and Poseidon joined him. I understand what you are saying, my friend. More than you know. The man replied. To have lived and loved, to have seen the horrors and the darkness and yet still be able to look directly into the light. You are strong, my friend. Not just in body, but in faith as well. The man spoke. Thank you for your kind words. Poseidon replied. No thanks are necessary, my friend. I only speak the truth. I am glad I have met you, sir. If possible, I would have liked to talk a little bit longer, but I am afraid I am needed elsewhere. I hope we can meet again someday. Maybe if not in this world, then in the next. Until then, keep strong to your beliefs, my friend. Honor and cherish those that stand beside you and protect them with your life. The man spoke. I see, so this is goodbye then? Poseidon asked. No, not goodbye, just until next time. The man explained. He looked to Poseidon and waved as he descended from the rooftop. Poseidon watched as he slowly but surely vanished into the crowd of people, wondering what exactly he went. The world is lucky to have men like him still wandering its plains. Too bad there aren't more like him. Chapter 72, not a chapter. Update. Okay, I'm going through with my idea for the adaptation power. But after I've gotten a good length through this story. But when I do eventually start it, the character's going to need a cool name. So here's a few. Bruticus, Brawl, Onslaught, Devastator, Metroplex, Omega Supreme, Deadened, Ultra Magnus, Gridlock, Deadlock, Grimlock. Just a handful of cool names from another franchise full of badass characters. Feel free to put forth your own name. But keep in mind the theme of the character will be a brawler. BTW working on the real chapter right now. Hopefully I'll be done with it by 12. Chapter 73, Death of Christ. Poseidon continued his search. After all, Jerusalem was a rather large city in its entirety. And Poseidon was taking his time. It was beginning to set. The sun was. So, Poseidon decided it was time for a meal. Or more like the constant rumbling of his stomach forced him to finally find something to eat to ease himself. Okay, I gotta find some food. I haven't eaten in days, or has it been weeks? I can't remember. Whatever. Poseidon wandered around the village he was in, looking for any place he could find to help him get some food. Eventually Poseidon wandered upon a tavern. Hello, can I help ya? The female servant asked. Yes, I need food. Whatever ya got. And a lot of it. Poseidon replied. Alright, ya gonna need to be a bit more specific than that. What do ya want? She asked. Her voice had the slightest accent that Poseidon had only ever heard from up north. He wanted to question it, but his mind was too busy trying to find food. Meat, all of your meat dishes, and as much water or milk or booze as you can give me. Poseidon replied. One cursed thing about being a god. You naturally eat far more than any human ever will. Right away. But first, do you happen to have the coin for all of this? She asked. She stared at Poseidon's dirty cloak skeptically, wondering if he could afford to actually eat at her place. Of course. Poseidon replied. He could tell by the look on the woman's face what she was thinking. He reached into his robe and pulled out a bag full of nothing but gold coins. The moment he handed it over and the woman looked inside, her eyes nearly jumped out of her head. Is this all gold? She asked. Yes. Food now please. Poseidon asked. The woman jumped up and kissed Poseidon on his cheek. Absolutely, sir. Coming right up. She exclaimed. She turned around and ran into the back. Presumably to begin cooking. Guess I'll just seat myself then. Poseidon mumbled. Just seat yourself. He heard her yell from the back. Her excitement, if you want to call it that, did bring a smile to Poseidon's face. From the look of the tavern, not many people visited it. In fact, there were only 4 other men in the place that looked like it could easily sit at least 30. So, Poseidon was happy to be able to give the woman a little help. After a long time of preparation, the woman came running out of the kitchen with bowls of different kinds of soups in her hands and mugs of different kinds of liquid pleasures. Bea, that was amazing. After stuffing his gullet, Poseidon let out a loud and gassy belch. Huh, that was quite something there. I've never seen anyone eat that fast in all me life. How did ya enjoy the meals? The woman asked. It was delicious, ma'am. I haven't eaten anything so good in such a long time. Poseidon replied. Well, I haven't had to work so hard in such a long time, so consider us even. The lady spoke. So, what is a handsome young man like yourself doing here? You don't seem to be from Jerusalem. The woman spoke. Neither do you. Poseidon replied. He and the woman both started laughing. Well, that's true. The name's Sira. I moved here a long time ago with me father. He used to be the owner of this tavern. But he's gone and passed on now, leaving me behind to run the place. Sira explained. I am sorry to hear that. Poseidon replied. Don't be. He's with the others now, resting in place far better suited for his nonsensical humor than this one. So, what about yourself? Why are you here? Sira asked. I am looking for Christ. Poseidon replied bold and simply. Oh, you need to be careful. The people to be don't really like him that much around here. I've been hearing some pretty dreadful news lately, but I don't know if they're true. Sira replied. Oh, I haven't heard much. I figured he just must be someone who prefers his privacy. Poseidon replied. Just be careful, okay? Sira stated. Huh? Well, he doesn't need to be careful for much longer. One of the few patrons in the bar spoke from across the room. Poseidon and Sira both turned upon hearing the man and he laughed. What haven't you heard? They caught Christ. They're going to be crucifying him this afternoon. He stated. Poseidon's eyes widened and he hopped up and sprinted out of the tavern. Why are they about to kill the son of their god? Who the hell does that? Whatever, I haven't even met the guy yet. I can't miss this opportunity. Poseidon spoke. He ran through the streets of Jerusalem looking for any signs of a gathered crowd. That's most likely where his target would be. As he ran, the sound of cries grew louder and louder. He continued running, and when he eventually reached the open plain, the grisly sight before him sickened him beyond belief. High above the plains, laid bare for all to see, was a man, covered in blood and lash marks, wearing a crown of thorns, crucified to a cross. Poseidon looked closer, as close as he could from so far away, and when he saw the man, who had been done so cruelly, he recognized him as the good man he had met a few times in his search for Jesus. And when he did, he muttered a single word. Jesus. Jesus Christ, despite his pain and being so far away, looked past the crowd of people and smiled at his friend. Poseidon's heart dropped and an anger was born into the very pits of his stomach. This wasn't a hurricane. No, this feeling, this burning was a storm. No, not just a storm. The storm? Poseidon's face twisted with anger. He raised his trident to the sky and the clouds above turned black. Lightning bolts raged down from the heavens in front of Jesus, blocking any and all paths towards him. The winds picked up, like a hurricane, and the rain plastered the ground below. Poseidon was ready to both free his friend, Jesus Christ, and end the people who had done him so. But just before he could strike, he felt a warm and gentle presence grace him. No, my friend. Jesus mumbled. The people so close to him could not hear his voice or even see his mouth move, yet so far away, Poseidon heard him clearly. Why not, Jesus? I had come to find you. I wanted so badly to meet you. You were a good man, a man of true faith. Why won't you let me save you now? Poseidon asked. Why save them? Because they know not what they have done. Not all of them sought me out for such a thing. They are not beyond redemption, my friend. No one truly is. I know there is good in them. I believe it. And so should you. I am glad to have had this last chance to meet you, my friend. Though we have only met 2 times, I feel like you know me better than anyone ever truly has. You listened to me speak when you could have easily just ignored me. And you shared with me your wisdom, that has allowed me to better understand not only myself but those around me. Thank you, Jesus spoke. His voice was soft and gentle and calming, despite the amount of pain he was in. The sight broke Poseidon's heart more than anything has for more than 100 years. Not since the passing of his friend Qin Shi Huang, the death of his family, and the loss of Phoenix had Poseidon wanted to cry so badly. I only ask that in my passing you do not harm the people, but continue to protect them, so that they can become the best they can be. Will you do this for me, my friend? Jesus asked. Even near death and in agony as he was, he still cared more for the people than his own well-being. Poseidon, now fully crying tears of sadness and pain, nodded his head. Yes, my friend, Jesus Christ. You have my word, that for as long as I live, I will never forsake the people of this planet. And I will always fight to protect, even from themselves. Poseidon replied. Thank you. Jesus spoke softly for the last time. He then looked to the sky and smiled. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Jesus spoke. Poseidon brought his raging storm to an end, as he had promised his friend Jesus, only for the earth to begin shaking violently. Poseidon looked around and wondered where this fury was coming from, as he hadn't been the one to start it. But then he realized it. So, you can feel rage too? He asked. He looked to the sky and watched as the heavens shined down on Jesus' body. The earthquake continued to rage on, only ending once the soldier beneath Christ had pierced his body with a spear, cutting open his flesh and killing him. A rage burned within Poseidon, but for his friend and the promise he made, he allowed the people to live with what they've done. And for the first and only time in history a god prayed to another god. Rest well, my friend. I pray God has received your soul and that you are resting now in your eternal paradise. Amen. Chapter 74, Flying General, Time Period, 190 AD. China, how long has it been since I've been here, I wonder? I don't think I've stepped foot in this land since Qin Shi Huang's death. That was a long time ago. Poseidon spoke. He looked out at the land of China and marveled at its beauty. A feeling of nostalgia washed over him as he sat on top of the mountain peak. The wind brushing past his face, the sun shining down on his face, reminded him why he loved this land so much. I think I'll take a look around. Maybe I'll meet someone interesting. Poseidon spoke. He stood up from the tip of the mountain and just as he did, he heard the sound of thunder from below. Hey, speaking of someone interesting. P.O.V change. Lubuletin. Another failure. GRM. Lubuletin dropped the wrecked remains of another halberd and reached down into a massive pile of halberds and picked up another. He reeled back the halberd in his mighty hands and thrusted it forward with such force and intensity that the halberd ripped itself apart. Another. Lubuletin was mightier than any other of his time. And to be the perfect warrior, he needed the perfect weapon. Strong, flexible, and resilient enough to withstand his mighty strength. But yet, no matter how long he searched, nothing seemed to be able to withstand his grip. And this pained Lubuletin greatly. Forever strong, yet unable to reach his peak due to not having a weapon to help him. Lubuletin continued tirelessly, trying each and every single halberd he had in his possession, hoping for one of them to withstand the test. My lord, perhaps you should rest for a bit. Gather your nerves. Chen Gong, Lubuletin's lieutenant, spoke. He was a devout follower of the general and believed full in his cause. Lubuletin, however, did not respond. He merely reached for the next halberd. However, as he did, he felt a chill run up his spine and a presence approaching him. Lubuletin looked up just in time to see something large crash down in front of him. Well, looks like I found something interesting after all. The man spoke. Lubuletin turned towards him and grabbed a halberd. Who are you? Lubuletin asked. I am who I am. Who are you? The man asked. Lubuletin. He replied. Well, Lubuletin, I couldn't help but overhear that mighty swing of yours. Such force, it sounded like thunder. You must be pretty strong to be able to do something like that. The man spoke. It's been a while since I've had a good challenge. You wouldn't mind going a few rounds with me, would you? The man asked. Lubuletin eyed the stranger adamantly. He was strange, his skin whiter than any he had seen before, his clothing was weird as well, he was wearing a dusty brown robe, but Lubuletin had seen under it as he was falling. And his weapon was even weirder, he had seen tridents before, but not one like this. Blue and with fish scales on the blade. That was a strange combination even for him. But nevertheless, Lubuletin smiled. Okay, why not? I need something to distract myself. I hope you are ready, Lubuletin stated. He raised his halberd and charged the man. He leapt into the air and swung the halberd down, not with all his might, but still pretty great force. But Lubuletin wasn't ready for what happened. The man parried Lubuletin's strike and pushed him back a great distance. Lubuletin looked up in shock. Never had he been pushed back so easily. As quick as his shock came it went and, in its place, came excitement. Aha! Lubuletin rushed the man and started swinging his halberd wildly. The man amusedly backed away from each of his strikes and then grabbed onto the halberd, pulling it towards him and chopping the man in the back of the neck. The strike caused Lubuletin to black out for a moment. He hit the ground and tumbled. He came to a stop and started coughing up blood. Ugh, you. What are you? Lubuletin asked as he got to his feet. He had never been hit so hard in all his life. The man didn't reply, he simply raised his hand and beckoned for Lubuletin to attack him again. Lubuletin lunged forward towards the man while holding the halberd at the edge of its shaft. The lord is going for his killer move. Get back everyone. Chen Gong shouted. Killer move? This should be fun. Poseidon thought. He smirked and raised his trident in preparation for the fighter's strongest attack, a sense of excitement creeping into his gut. Skyater. Lubuletin swung forward with the force of a tornado and slammed his halberd down on the man's trident. Poseidon was surprised by the force of the attack, having to brace himself to prevent from being slammed into the ground. Lightning danced around the two men and the sky above parted. However, unfortunately for Lubuletin, his halberd shattered. Not bad, flying general. But you're not there yet. The man spoke to Lubuletin. He then punched Lubuletin right in the center of his stomach. Lubuletin fell forward and spit up a mouthful of spit. He then collapsed face first on the ground, unconscious from the force of the man's strike. Our general needs us to battle. Yeah. The soldiers of Lubuletin rushed forward to defend their leader, but the man in front of them just shook his head. When he wakes up, deliver a message. Not there yet. The peak is just a little further. The man spoke. Until then, I'll be watching. He then disappeared in a flash of lightning. Where'd he go? Search for him in the mountains. The rest of you get Lord Lubuletin back to camp. He needs treatment. Yes sir. P.O.V Poseidon. Well, that was certainly something. A human who can split the sky. He's going to be something someday. He's not quite at Qin Shi Huang's level, but still for a human man that is impressive. I wonder if this will be a pattern? I meet one human every 100 or so years that can exceed human expectations. I hope not. It feels like they're stuck in limbo. They gain one great man or woman and then they lose them. Something needs to change. Maybe I should try shaking things up once again. It's been a while since I've had an honest adventure. I just hope the world is ready for me. Poseidon leapt from the mountain top off into the great distance ahead. I wonder where his next journey will take him. Chapter 75, Centuries gone by. Many years have passed, and Poseidon continued his adventures across the lands to a place called Britannia. He had settled in a nice and quiet forest, a place to distract himself from the woes of battle, for even he must take a break from war at some point. P.O.V. First person. How long has it been since I've been in such a peaceful environment? I asked myself. It feels nice to be able to just be once again. I got up from my bed and then got to work on preparing my food. I was making eggs. A great thing about Britannia, there's a bunch of chicken. So, they have a bunch of eggs. And eggs never go bad. They're the easiest thing to make. And they're great for the body. I took the eggs off of the heat and killed the fire. I then went and sat back down on my bed. It wasn't the softest thing I've slept on, but it was still pretty nice. I enjoyed my breakfast as best as I possibly could, and when I was done, I decided to go for a walk. P.O.V. Merlin. But Merlin, are you sure I can do this? The young boy asked me. Arthur, you can do anything you set your mind to. You just need to believe. I told the boy. Arthur was a child unlike any I have seen before. He was soft, kind, caring. This boy was truly special. I have seen great things awaiting him. As Sorcerer Supreme, it's my job to ensure this boy becomes best version of himself. If you say so. Arthur replied. I smiled and rubbed the boy's head, ruffling it. Ah, come on Merlin, do you need to treat me like I'm 6? Arthur asked. You may be older now Arthur, but you will always be a child to me. Remember that. I told the boy. Yes, I know Merlin. There's always someone out there older and wiser than you are. And also, stronger. Arthur spoke. Very good. Now, on to the matter at hand. You have been named the King of Camelot Arthur, but the sword you have in your possession is broken. By pulling it from the stone you have proven you're the true heir to the throne. But you cannot rule without a sword. A true sword. But you must once again prove your worth. I explained to the boy. It was necessary he understood that he must be worthy. That meant being true to himself and to others. I know, Merlin. I know. Arthur replied. He spoke the words I wanted to hear, but whether or not he meant them was something else entirely. And only time would tell if he was serious. Come my boy, we are getting closer. Let's not waste any more time with chatter. We have a schedule to follow. Chop chop. I told the boy. Arthur rolled his eyes and chuckled. The boy was still young and definitely had a long way to go. Hagh. I suddenly felt a powerful presence appear not too far from where Arthur and I were. What is it Merlin? Are you all right? Arthur asked in concern. I placed my hand on my chest and wheezed. I am fine, Arthur. Just need a moment. I need to go check something. Arthur, you are to stay here and await my return. Understand? I asked the boy. Yes, Merlin. Arthur replied. Good. I waved my hands and a portal opened in front of me and I stepped through. P.O.V. Change. Arthur. Okay, so he's gone. Now I just wait I guess. I threw my stuff down and sat on the nearest stump and began counting the minutes away until Merlin returned from doing whatever it was that spooked him so badly. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him so scared. I hope whatever it is, he's all right. I continued just sitting there. The minutes that I had been counting soon passed. As I waited, I could feel my eyes beginning to get heavier and heavier. And just as I was about to fall asleep, there it was a shining bright light that appeared just beyond the tree line from where I sat. Come to me, Arthur. Allow me to lay my eyes upon you. I heard a woman's voice calling out to me. It was soft and serene that I hadn't even noticed that I had already got to my feet and was walking towards the light. I know I was supposed to wait for Merlin, but this just felt right. P.O.V. Change Poseidon. 30 minutes earlier. I had Hestia set up this little veil so that no one could find my home and bother me, but I haven't ventured out past this place for a while. I'm sure it couldn't hurt to go sightseeing. I walked past the magical veil and the forest opened up into a field of grass. Ah, such a beautiful sight. Can anything ruin this moment? I asked. Suddenly a portal opened up in front of me and a man wearing a grey robe, with a golden staff, and a long white beard stepped out in front of me with his staff raised threateningly. Why is a god here on earth? What are you here for? The man asked. You know what I am? That's strange. I have lived for over 1,000 years and no man has ever been able to guess what I am without me specifically telling him. You must be special human. Who are you? I asked. It was a wonder to see someone knew who I was. Or at least what I was. I asked you first. The man spoke. His voice commanded power yet he still seemed frightened. Fine, I guess I'll go first. My name is Poseidon, Greek god of the sea, and I am here simply to relax and stretch my legs. I explained to the man. I figured since he wasn't a clear threat, telling him shouldn't hurt. There I went. Now it is your turn. Merlin, Sorcerer Supreme of Earth and attendant to King Arthur of Camelot. The man replied. Merlin huh? Wait, Sorcerer Supreme. You mean the one who studies under the Vishanti? I've heard tales of your predecessors. It's a pleasure to finally meet one of you in person. Tell me, what is a man with power like yours doing as the attendant to a king? Surely if you wanted you could be king yourself. I spoke. I was not unfamiliar with humans being able to put aside their own petty needs for the sake of others. There were many great examples of men of power using it to help others. Jesus was a devout believer in the people. Qin Shi Huang was a king that believed in respecting the people's wishes and putting them ahead of himself. I understood this very well. But still it was surprising to know someone with power far greater than theirs could also put his faith in those below him. It is not my place to rule. It is, plain and simple. My duty is to protect him and ensure a brighter future for Camelot comes to pass. And to that end I will face anything that should try to destroy it. Merlin explained. Well, as I told you, I haven't come to destroy you or Camelot, or your king. In fact, I am quite sure that while I can beat you, a fight between us would only endanger the world. Therefore it is pointless. So, don't worry. I won't interfere in your plans. As long as you don't try to interfere in mine. I told the man. I see. Merlin replied. He lowered his staff and relaxed his muscles. Forgive me if I was rude. I am not used to dealing with gods like you. Most other worldly beings that come to this planet only come with ill intent. I need to keep my guard up no matter what. You have my word, Poseidon. I will not interfere in your affairs so long as you stay out of mine. Merlin replied. Excellent. Then we have come to an agreement. Begone, sorcerer. I told the man. As you wish. Merlin raised his hands, and they began to glow. However, nothing happened. It can't be. I don't understand. Merlin broke out into a panic. What is it, sorcerer? I asked. Merlin raised his hands again and frantically cast a spell. Hey whoa, wait dash in a flash of bright green light Merlin and I were both sucked up into a portal. Chapter 76, King Arthur. A minute? Damn it. I cursed as I materialized next to Merlin in a different part of the forest. I looked around trying to figure out where I was, while Merlin frantically searched for his king. Why does this always happen when I am trying to just enjoy my peace? One day. Is that too much to ask for? I asked. Where is he? Merlin exclaimed. I turned towards the man and sighed. Will you come yourself? Maybe that will help. I told the man. Come myself? Do you understand what will happen if anything happens to that boy? Merlin exclaimed. He was panicked and delirious. Well, if you come to yourself, you might just feel it too. That magical energy in the air. It's so thick I can taste it. It takes like water from a clean lake. I explained to the man. What are you? Wait. Merlin started sniffing the air and slowly but surely, he started relaxing. Yes, now that you mention it, I can feel it too. It's familiar. This presence. Merlin closed his eyes and then breathed a heavy sigh. I see. I had hoped to be with him when the time came. But it would seem the Lady of the Lake had different plans. Merlin stated. Lady of the Lake? Who is she? I asked the man. She is a being of old. Probably just as old as yourself, if not older. A being of magic energy so strong that only the strongest of mages could even feel her presence. Which begs the question, how is it that you can sense her? Merlin asked. She's most likely some sort of divine being. It isn't hard when she's literally placing all of her power in the open. I would be pathetic if I couldn't sense this extremely power magic. I told the man. But wait, why can you feel her presence, yet you couldn't sense my own? What's different now than just a few moments ago? Merlin asked. The fact he was confused by such a simple to answer question surprised me. Because I am actively trying to find her, Merlin. It's like a lever I can flip back and forth. When I met you, I was just hoping to go for a walk and had not expected to run into you. But the moment you teleported us, my guard went back up. I explained to the man. He seemed to understand by the way he shook his head, but I'm not sure. Well, we'll just have to wait until he comes out. If he comes out, Merlin stated. Sure, I can spare a few minutes. I spoke. I cut down one of the trees and sat down on the stump that remained. Wait, you're actually going to stay? I thought you didn't want to be bothered with this? Why the change of attitude? Merlin asked. Simple. I'm interested in meeting this so-called king you keep speaking about. I want to see what has garnered the Sorcerer Supreme's attention. You don't mind, do you, Merlin? I asked the man. I explained to him my reasoning for wanting to stay and he stared at me, his face betraying his thoughts. I could tell he wasn't pleased with the idea. Please, Merlin, if I wanted to hurt the boy there's nothing you could do to stop me. I told you already, being the master of all magic doesn't put you above me. Besides, if I wanted to hurt him, I said to the man. I got back to my feet and got in his face. I would have done so already. I wasn't really threatening him. I just wanted to mess with him a bit since he snatched me up without permission. In truth, I only wanted to meet the king to see if his reputation preceded him. And in fact, had no plans on hurting him or Merlin at all. But sometimes it's just so fun to play the scary god. Okay, you gave your word, and I believed you. I don't think you would go back on it now. Just temper your expectations. Merlin explained. What does that mean? I know he said he was young, but to be a king at his age, he must be quite the young man. We waited for what felt like hours in that one spot, warding off any travelers from accidentally stumbling upon this place. Or really Merlin did. I just watched. A few more hours would go by until anything of significance would happen. We were both sitting down, when suddenly a light appeared. This is it. Merlin spoke. We both got up and watched as the light grew brighter. The lady has made her judgment. Either Arthur will return the true king, or he would not return at all. Merlin spoke. He watched closely as the light began to pulse, the feeling of tension growing every moment. And from the light came a blade unlike anything I have ever seen amongst the humans before. It was silver like most swords these days, and there was nothing special about the hilt. However, the blade emitted a strange aura and, on the blade itself were black markings. They were some kind of language that I had never seen before. Most likely what gave the blade its mysterious aura. And holding on to the blade was a slim adolescent boy. Really, I waited all this time for him? I asked. I told you to temper your expectations. He is still young and has much growing to do, but the fact he passed the ladies' trials proves that he is worthy to be king, Merlin explained. And to be fair, he was right. But I won't go on his words alone. That sword is dangerous. Its power rivals that of Zeus God Slayer and the Grasscutter of old. I can't let a weapon like that just roam around in the hands of some kid. Merlin, I did it. Arthur spoke. He raised his head and stared at the two of us questioningly. Merlin, who is this? Arthur asked. He's. Merlin started. Your final test. Come, kid, let's see what you can do with that blade. I told the boy, but we just met. I'm not gonna fight you just for the sake of it. Arthur replied. I exploded towards the boy, stopping right in front of his face. I crouched down, so he could see my face and glared at him. Then this is going to be a very painful death. I told the boy. His eyes shot open, and he raised the sword to defend himself. I kicked the blade hard and sent him crashing into a tree. The boy hit the tree hard and cough spit. He then quickly rolled over onto his feet and raised his blade. What are you going to do, little king? I asked. I rushed him again and punched at him. I was being careful, not to use more force than was enough to show him I was vastly stronger than he was. And surprisingly, he managed to dodge my fist. He rolled out of the way and laughed, but his face quickly turned to shock when he saw me send a tree flying with ease. You're using your speed? Good. But you're leaving yourself wide open. Be fast, strike quick, but don't move too fast. You want to also be powerful. Quick and strong, that should be what you focus on at your size. I told the boy. He was small and should use that to his advantage. I know that. Arthur replied. He lunged towards me with the tip of the sword. It seemed to be the size of a long sword, which was pretty heavy, yet he wielded it with such ease. I stepped back and waited until he swung at me again, and when he did, I grabbed the hilt of the sword and used my shoulder to push the boy away. The moment his hand left the blade, its weight increased by thousands. What the hell? I exclaimed. I dropped the sword to the ground. I tried to lift it, but it wouldn't budge. I looked up and Arthur kicked me in the face. He then quickly grabbed his sword and rolled away as I stumbled to process what just happened. Don't get cocky, boy. It's unbecoming of a king. I told him. Though I was impressed, he took advantage of my brief moment of stupidity. And that was worth commending. Tell me something. What makes you a king? I asked the boy. What makes you a king? Well, I'm not really sure myself. But I'd like to think a king is someone the people can put their faith in, to defend them in their time of need, and to lead them through turmoil. A king isn't someone who puts his own selfish beliefs ahead of his kingdom. If he does, he risks harming those he swore to protect. That's what I think. A king is someone does right by the people. Arthur replied. And what makes you think you deserve to be king? I asked. Well, truthfully, I don't think I do. I'm not big and strong like you. I can't use magic like Merlin. I'm not handsome, and I've never led anything in all my life. But I do know I have to try. If I don't at least try, then not only am I letting the faith Merlin has placed in me go to ruin, but it could also bring ruin to Camelot. So, I'm going to try even if I have to go through you first. Arthur spoke. His words were wise. Such bravery and commitment from a boy of young age was surprising to say the least. And all of it was true and from the heart. You don't practice an answer like that. Yeah. Arthur raised his sword and charged me again. I smirked and shook my head. Well, then King Arthur, let me give you a lesson. In order to walk the path of a warrior, and eventually reach its peak, there is one thing you still lack. Let me show you. The clouds above turned dark as I began to exert my full power, something I wouldn't normally do on Earth. Rain began to fall hard, like tiny blades in the wind. Lightning and thunder pranced around in the sky above, signaling a great and devastating storm. Arthur suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked up to the sky in fear. When he looked back to where I had been standing, I was gone as I had already moved behind him. I chopped him the back of the neck hard, and Arthur's body suddenly went limp. He started falling, but before he hit the ground, I caught. I then began dispersing the storm and the world returned to normal. Brave fool. Never take your eyes off the enemy. I spoke. I placed the boy down softly and then turned to Merlin. I'm surprised you didn't interfere. Why didn't you? I asked. I didn't sense any malicious intent from your words or actions. I believe you merely wanted to test Arthur's worth yourself. So, what do you think? Merlin asked. I think this boy is going to be a great king, if raised right. I replied. I looked down at the boy and smirked. Such a promising young boy, with a great future. King Arthur of Camelot, huh? I wonder what kind of story you'll leave behind. Chapter 77, MNM. P.O.V. Third person. 10 years after Arthur became king. Yeah. The boy lunges at his teacher with his sword in hand while his mother, father, and his uncle watch from above. But the boy's sword is deflected with ease, and he is thrown to the ground hard. Your attitude is respectable, but you're being sloppy. Try it again, Mordred. The man spoke. His golden hair falling down his face. Get up and do it again. But try to keep your balance. I shouldn't be able to knock you down so easily. But you're too strong, Sir Vali. I can't. Mordred complained. Yes, you can. Your father did it, you can too. Vala said to the boy. He had been the one to train King Arthur in the art of battle, and now accepted the role of teaching Mordred. Arthur and Guinevere's son. But I'm not my father. I don't have his sword. I can't do this. It isn't my job to. Why must I dirty myself like a peasant? Mordred complained. Because you need to know how to defend yourself and because your father asked me to make sure you don't embarrass yourself. No, get up and do it again. Vali exclaimed. He raised his voice, causing the boy to flinch. I don't want to. Mordred complained. Mordred, stop complaining and do as your Uncle Vala says. Guinevere shouted from the stands. Yes, mommy. Mordred replied. He groaned as he got back to his feet and proceeded to lazily charge Vala once again, only for the man to throw him back to the ground. Mordred, stop being lazy. This isn't going to get any easier for you if you don't work with me. Don't you want to be king someday? How can you be king if you can't defend yourself? Vali asked. There is more than one way to be a king. Mordred replied. Yes, you are right. But not all ways are worthy, and most other ways lead to ruin. I've seen it before, a king who believes himself all-powerful, only to be taken down by that which he thought beneath him. It happens more than you realize, and if you aren't careful you could end up just the same. Vali explained to the boy. He wanted him to rise to the same level as his father, but deep inside he knew the boy was rotten. He cared more for his own gain than anything else. After a few more futile attempts to get Mordred to continue his training, Vali eventually decided to just call it for the day. P.O.V. Change Vali, Poseidon. Ugh, okay, that's enough for today, Mordred. Go see Merlin, he'll tend to your wounds and then get washed up. Just because you fight like a little troll, doesn't mean you need to smell like one. I told the boy. I was growing tired of his pathetic excuses every minute. At this pace, he'll never succeed his father. Yes, Sir Vali, Mordred replied. I watched as the boy sulked away and I shook my head. Such a shame, so much potential going to waste. A real shame. I quickly left the training grounds and made my way up to where Arthur and the others were. Ah, hello Vali, I appreciate you trying to teach that boy of ours. Guinevere spoke. Of course, Guinevere. I only hope the boy turns out to be as good a student as his father was. I spoke. Guinevere was a kind and lovely woman. Arthur got lucky with this one. Yeah, I just wish you wouldn't be so hard on the boy. Arthur spoke. I mean, he isn't like me, nor should he want to be me. Arthur spoke. And normally, you'd be right. But I wish he were you. He's selfish, arrogant, he treats his people like ants. He can't be king. I told the man. You don't get to speak about my son. Arthur spoke. I get to say whatever I want, Arthur. I understand he's your son. But a boy like that, who refuses to do right, a boy who only wants to take and take is only going to become a bane. He's rotten. He doesn't have either of your compassion, your hearts. It's like he's the complete opposite of you both. I explained to the man. I was hoping he would take the hints and try to talk some sense into the boy before he was too far gone, if he wasn't gone already. Is that any way to speak about your nephew, Sir Vali? That hypnotizing, sultry tone could belong only to one person. Lady Morgan. It's been a while since I've seen you. You look as beautiful as ever. I told the woman. She was something else. She was deadly. A viper in human clothes if I've ever seen one. Why, my dear Vali, I'm so glad you think so. She spoke as she sauntered up to me, her hips swaying side to side in a hypnotic dance, her bountiful breasts visible beyond her green dress. I have been trying so hard for so long. To impress you? Morgan leaned up and whispered into my ear. Is that right? I replied. I leaned down towards her lips and stopped just inches from them. Well, then my little snake. You'll have to try harder. I pulled away from Morgan and I could hear the woman huff in frustration. Anyways, I'll be leaving for a bit, Arthur. So, until I return, don't burn the kingdom down. I told the man. What? Leaving? Where are you going? He asked. Oh, just to pay a little visit home. I'll be back in a few weeks. I explained. I see. Well then, I wish you good luck in your travels. Though I hardly doubt you need it. Arthur spoke. Nonsense, Arthur. Any wish of good luck is much appreciated. Lady Guinevere, take care of yourself. Old man. Morgan, my dear. I nodded to each of the people in the room before leaving. It was just a way to show grace. My dear Vali, my bed will be waiting for your return. Morgan whispered. This woman certainly didn't give up. If Ellie Faye was anything, she was persistent. And she was a beautiful woman. I smirked and snaked my arm around her waist and pulled her close. I may just take you up on that. If you behave. Oh, I'll be a good girl. Sister. Arthur exclaimed. He didn't like it when people flirted with Morgan. Despite her sly nature, it was clear he still cared a great deal for her. Poor guy can just be too trusting. But that good nature is exactly why he's the king. I released Morgan and quickly exited the stands. It was time for another one of Zeus meetings. And since I missed the last one, I figured I'd show up to this one. I did give my word. But man, these meetings can be so boring. I exclaimed. I better not miss anything interesting. Chapter 78, The Knights. 2 weeks later. P.O.V. Vali, Poseidon. I walked towards the front gates of the castle. I was impressed that Arthur hadn't managed to burn the castle down while I was away. He's a good king, but a smart one he is not. Halt. No one is to enter the castle at the moment. One of the guards spoke. Move aside, recruit. Sorry, sir. He's new. Please, you should hurry to see the Grand Enchanter. There's been some disturbing news going around. The head guard spoke. Very well, I will head there immediately, I told the man. I walked past the two men and could still hear the head guard chewing the new guy out behind me. Poor kid, he didn't know better. At least we know he takes his job seriously. Arthur, what did you do? I couldn't help but ask. I had only been gone at the most 2 weeks for the meeting and downtime. There's no way he could have gotten into so much trouble in such short time. I walked up the palace, towards Merlin's magic chambers and knocked on the door. I am busy right now, come back later. Merlin spoke. It's me, Merlin. Open up, I told the man. I heard scrambling behind the door and the noise of books falling over. I then heard the rambling of the bolts on the door and Merlin jerked it open. He reached out and grabbed me, pulling me straight into his room. Inside there were marking all over the walls and books strewn out across the floor. Thank the Lord, you're here. I have terrible news. Merlin spoke. What's so bad? You have the guards on alert and have stowed away in your cave, I asked the man. Mordred and Morgan tried to assassinate Arthur, he exclaimed. Wait, what? I asked the man. That was quite the claim to make. I mean, they were his family. I wouldn't put it past Morgan, the woman is naturally deadly. But Mordred is still only 10 and is his son. I've seen sons kill their fathers for power before, but not at 10 years old. Wait, Merlin, what are you talking about? Morgan wasn't too happy when Arthur suggested converting all of Britain to Christianity. I don't have much proof, but I know both she and Mordred tried to overthrow him, Merlin explained. Merlin, that's a bold claim to make without much proof. What did you say to Arthur? I asked the man. I told him the same, but he says he can't believe his family would do that to him. Merlin replied. I can understand that. I'm having a hard time understanding it myself. Are you sure it was them? I asked the man. Yes, I am telling you it was them. Without a shadow of a doubt? You need to believe me, Merlin exclaimed. All right, I believe you. What do you plan to do? I asked the man. I still couldn't believe it myself. But Merlin was always trying to raise Arthur to be stronger. He wouldn't suddenly just throw all that away. I'm busy creating my newest creation. I need you to train him just like you did Gawain and Lancelot, Merlin exclaimed. I didn't really train those two. Lancelot is a prodigy and Gawain studied on his own. He was always trying to beat Lancelot. I mean, those two practically trained each other, I replied. Your humble attitude doesn't go unnoticed, but this is no time for that, Merlin explained. Fine. Does this new creation even have a name? I asked. I'm glad you asked. Poseidon meet. Merlin ran to the center of his room and slammed his staff down on the giant magic circle in the middle. Smoke and lights flashed into the room and a body appeared from the circle clad in all black armor. Sir Percival of Scandia, the new Black Knight, Merlin exclaimed. The Black Knight? I asked. Yes, the Black Knight. His armor of all black shall protect not only him but Arthur as well, and his blade, the legendary ebony blade, forged by myself and Percival from the Starstone meteorite. The blade is enchanted to cut through object, to prevent its master's death, and it can deflect magic. It should be more than enough to deal with Morgan, Merlin explained. Merlin then turned to his knight and clapped. So, Percival, how do you feel? Merlin asked. I feel incredible, Merlin. It's like I've been reborn. Percival spoke. Because you have, dear boy, you have gained a power that few can rival, Merlin explained. Now, you just need to learn to control it. And I have the perfect teacher here for you, the man who helped teach all of the greatest knights of Brighton, Merlin explained. But I already foiled that witch's plans once. I already know how to fight. I've already been knighted. What more do I need? Percival asked. Proper guidance. We need to test how strong this blade is, what it does to you. Magic of no kind should be underestimated, I explained to the man. I didn't know who was under that helmet, and I really didn't care. But I wouldn't have none of my knights being lazy. Lancelot was the cool and honorable prodigy, who everyone loved. His loyalty and devotion to Arthur earned him the first knight of Camelot. Gawain was a hot-headed troublemaker that hated to fall behind. He didn't get things as easily as Lancelot did. But he had heart and he fought for his place no matter what was placed in front of him. Both of them were my pride and joys. My own knights. They both have more potential than even Arthur. That's not a knock on Arthur, he's in a class of his own right now. But if he didn't watch himself, he might find that those two have left him behind. Right. But first we need to inform Arthur of your return. He's been waiting to ask you something ever since you left. Merlin spoke. Okay, but I want Percival on the training grounds before I'm done, I told the man. Yes, of course, Percival replied. Let's go, Merlin. I turned and walked out of the room with Merlin right behind me. Such a storm has been shaken up in 2 short weeks. Oh boy, I get the feeling this is going to be another long campaign. Chapter 79, Knights of the Round Table. P.O.V. Merlin and I both quickly made our way to Arthur's chambers, storming past the armed guards, who were stationed at every corner of the tower. When we arrived, we were greeted by 2 of the most promising knights in all of Brighton. Sir Valet, it is a pleasure to see you in good health. It has been a while. Gawain spoke. He smiled at me and bowed his head. His greeting was nice and full of lip service, but it was also full of shite. Gawain, you little shit. What did you do now? I asked the man. Gawain flinched at my accusation and then started giggling nervously, his whole demeanor betrayed his voice. Why, what do you mean, teacher? You're being nice, I don't like it. You did something. That or you want something. Which is it? I asked. Why would I need a reason to be nice to my favorite teacher? Gawain asked. Okay, now I definitely know something's wrong. If that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. Gawain fell out of a tower and crashed through one of the local shops, destroying the roof completely and costing the Knights Templars a grand total of 600 gold coins in total repairs. Lancelot interjected. I turned back to Gawain and grabbed him by the throat and started shaking him. 600? Are you kidding me? I asked. 600 gold coins was nothing to scoff at. Even 100 gold coins would allow the poorest man in Brighton to live good for the rest of his life, if he found a decent trade anyway. I didn't mean to. Lancelot threw me out the window. He's just as much to blame as I am. Gawain shouted. I turned to Lancelot, and he simply looked away and whistled. Come here, ye little. I reached over and yanked Lancelot and placed them both in a headlock. Ow, hey, that hurts. Lancelot complained. Hiding the truth from Arya? What am I gonna do with you two? It wasn't my fault. He attacked me, and I threw him at the window. I didn't think he was so clumsy that he'd fall out. Lancelot explained. Oh, so you are both to blame. Well, guess what? I'm taking the damage costs out of your own coin. I told the two. Come on, don't do that. Man, that sucks. They both complained, but there was no other way for them to learn a lesson. Next time, don't fight near the expensive stuff. I told the two. I continued scolding the two boys until our racket eventually drew the attention of the queen. Guinevere came and answered the door, and I have to say she looked like she had been ravaged. Not in the good way, either. She was red-eyed and pale. It looked like she hadn't slept in days. I am glad you're all here. Come inside. Guinevere spoke. She was frail. Guinevere, what's the matter? I asked the woman. It's Arthur. He still hasn't recovered from the attempt on his life. I've been the one taking care of him. Guinevere explained. My lady, you know we have priests and healers who can more than handle the care of the king. Take a break. Lancelot spoke. I am more than capable of taking care of my husband, Sir Lancelot. But I appreciate your concern. Please, this way. Guinevere led us into Arthur's private quarters, where he was currently lying in bed. He was even worse than Guinevere. He looked almost translucent. Whatever happened, he had to have lost a lot of blood. Arthur, Merlin, Sir Arthur, and his knights are here. Guinevere spoke. She slinked down next to Arthur and roused him from his sleep. Huh? Oh, ow. Arthur groaned as he sat up from his bed. There was a long diagonal slash going down his chest. Whatever cut him, tore him open badly. Good, now that you're here I just need the others. Arthur spoke. I've already sent word for them. Sir Bors, Galahad, Gareth, Tristan, Kay, Pelias, Bedwer, Dagonet, and Agravain are all on their way. Guinevere spoke. Good. Arthur spoke. He then pushed himself up clumsily onto his feet and started to wobble. Guinevere quickly caught the man and used her body to support him. Arthur, you mustn't move. You're in bad shape. If you don't settle down, you'll reopen your wounds. Guinevere explained. No, I need to do this now. I should have done it before, but I wasn't sure. Now, more than ever Camelot needs defenders. And so do I. Arthur explained. Come, we must convene in the Chamber of Secrets. Arthur spoke. Guinevere nodded, and along with my help, we all ventured down to the lowest level of the tower. A secret room only a few knew, and that few being myself. A chamber built of secrets from both Merlin and me. Trinkets and knowledge of mystical creatures were gathered there along with our riches. Merlin, this cannot wait any longer. Fetch the others. Quickly. Arthur spoke. Of course, Arthur. Merlin replied. He waved his hands and suddenly the room began filling with portals, and the Knights of Brighton all stepped through. What the? Grand Mage Merlin, I thought I asked you not to do that to me again. Gareth spoke. King Arthur. What the bloody hell? Are you all right, my king? The knights all fell into a panic when they saw how ghastly Arthur had become in the days no one had seen him. Please, my knights, refrain yourselves from worry. It will not serve you here. No, now that we are all present, we can begin. Arthur spoke. Begin what, sir? Lancelot asked. Lancelot, Volek, Black Knight, Gawain, Galahad, Gareth, Kay, Bors, Pelias, Bedwer, Dagonet, Tristan. All you are my most trusted knights. Those who have fought at my side for years and have proven yourselves the worthiest of all Brighton. There are enemies out there right now conspiring against us. One of them nearly took my life. All because I was careless. This was an eye-opener for me. I need to expand my circle of trust, and I can think of none better than all of you. Arthur spoke. My king, you honor us. Galahad spoke. No, Galahad. You. All of you, honor me. I am entrusting each of you with a certain duty and task to uphold. But that is for another time, and I will tell you all in private. For now, Arthur spoke. He pulled Excalibur weakly from its sheath and raised it in front of his body. All of you stand around me and raise your blades. And listen. You must pledge right now never to do outrageousity nor murder, and always to flee treason. Also, by no means are you to be mean and to be cruel, but to give mercy unto him that asketh mercy, upon pain of forfeiture of their worship and lordship of King Arthur for evermore, and always to do ladies, damsels, and gentlewomen succor upon pain of death. Also, that man shall take on battles in a wrongful quarrel from the law. Arthur spoke. We all looked between each other and then did the same. We each raised our blades and connected them together to form a circle right in the middle of the room. We do so pledge on our faiths to follow the tenets set forth by our king, King Arthur. We all spoke. Now, repeat after me. I am King Arthur. Arthur spoke. And we are the Knights of Justice. We pledge fairness to all, to protect the weak and vanquish evil. We all followed along with Arthur and recited our oath once more. And I, Merlin, deem all of you the newly founded Knights of the Round Table. May you protect Brighton from the blight that is to come. Chapter 80, Excalibur. For 10 long years after their foundation, the Knights of the Round Table have faithfully defended Camelot and Brighton. They have prevailed through Brighton's darkest hours, against many foes, some natural, others very much mystical, from rogue Templars to the beasts of Merlin's otherworld. And despite all the darkness they've seen, they remain strong and loyal to their cause. But now they face a very different threat, one from inside. The once strong kingdom of Camelot has suffered a crippling blow from the sorceress and half-sister of the king, Morgan. How will our heroes be able to face what was once hidden, stirring beneath their own banner? Battle of Brighton? Southwest London? Yeah. Gawain, strong and proud, leads the efforts to retake the southwest quadrant of London from the undead forces of Morgan le Fay. He cut through the bodies of the undead with his burning sword Galatine. Stand strong, men. This battle isn't over yet. To the far north borders of London. Howl Arondinct, do not fail me. Lancelot, with his mighty blade Arondinct, cleaved through the hordes in front of him. He was currently facing Morgan's beasts. Dark and demented creatures hidden under veils of black with sharp claws. Men, we can't fail here. For King Arthur? For the Round Table? For Brighton? Lancelot and his knights all rushed back into battle with the beasts, swords raised and shields in hand. To the western sea of London? Hold the line! Hold the line! Burn Curragh House! Sir Tristan, son of Ban of Benwick, pushed back the Templar invaders with his piercing red blade. What is with these men? They won't stay down. I knew I should have let Gawain have this one. To arms, men! We can't let them get past this line. Tristan leapt back towards the Templars with his blade surging, a piercing aura. Bright flare. Tristan struck the Templars with a red beam of energy that cut through them with ease. Tristan's blade was a gift from his father, made and enchanted the same way Caliban, the previous blade Arthur used before acquiring Excalibur. Caliban and by proxy Curragh House both granted their users immeasurable strength, and both blades bolstered an unbelievable edge. To the eastern borders of London. Do not budge. We need to give the others time to retake the capital. Kay shouted. He fired into the crowd of demons with his sacred bow far song, a bow so powerful it fires arrows strong enough to pierce through a knight's armor with ease. The bow itself was the usual length of a bow, but its weight and the curved barrel from which the arrows were fired makes it nearly impossible for anyone to actually use it. The bow itself was carved from a dragon tooth, infused with fire from the large behemoth's belly and scales. It was a perfect weapon for a man with the eyes of a hawk, for the man known as the greatest archer in history. Fire. Sir Kay released another vicious arrow right towards the demons, tearing through them with ease. Remember why we fight, men. Remember what is at stake. All of the other knights were predisposed in other parts of Brighton. Morgan le Fay, the enchantress, was a smart woman indeed. She struck a powerful blow against the Round Table by attacking Camelot with a magical explosion that forced them to spend weeks recovering. In that time, she launched a massive campaign against the entirety of Brighton with the help of her otherworldly forces. At the center of London, carrying the hopes of the other forces on his back, was the head of the Round Table Poseidon, posing as Volek, was leading the forces on recapturing London for the people. Press forward? We can't let Galahad's sacrifice be in vain. Poseidon exclaimed. He raised his greatsword into the air and his soldiers charged the enemy. During his time as a knight, Poseidon had the chance to encounter many magical creatures from the other world. During one of these encounters, he slayed a powerful black dragon, much larger than most other dragons. From the skin of the dragon came the hilt, a black dragon-scaled hilt. The blade itself was a fang from the dragon. The hilt itself was 3 feet long, and the blade a whopping 5, meaning from tip to hilt the sword was 8 feet long. Quite a large sword. The blade was a polished silver and was enchanted by Merlin's magic. But magic is something Poseidon was not efficient in. Poseidon leapt into the field with his men and swung his large sword, splattering the blood and limbs of the demons in front of him all over the field. Yayak. Poseidon lifted his large sword up into the air and slammed it down in front of him, cracking the ground below and blowing away the demons in front of him. Take back what's ours. Yeah. The soldiers, led by their captain, rushed towards the Tower of London. Meanwhile, hiding away in her castle, Morgan was already planning her next move. So, what do you think, Mordred? Is this not what I promised you? Morgan asked. It is what you promised and more, Auntie. Truly a magnificent sight. The hordes of demons and undead are beginning to overwhelm the knights. I just have to ask, where did you find the means to produce such an army? Mordred asked. My dear nephew, time is nothing but a plaything for a sorceress like me. A friend from a long distance ahead gave me just the idea and the tools necessary for this. Yes, Doom has pulled through on his end significantly. The good doctor has given me a piece, something of extraordinary power. A piece of the Britain's core starlight. Morgan explained. But Morgan, this Britain core, are you sure they aren't going to come looking for it? Mordred asked. Oh, they will. Or she will. Good Braddock. The captain and her little team will most certainly come looking for it, but by the time they arrive it will be too little too late. Morgan explained. I'll tell you nephew, it feels good for all these years of quiet planning and mystical affliction finally paying off. I wonder how my dear Vale is enjoying his present in London. Morgan sneered. Back to the Battle of London. Hold the line, don't fall back. If we lose here, then this was all for nothing. Poseidon exclaimed. Damn it. If this keeps up, I'll have no choice but to start using my powers. I don't want to risk getting the soldiers caught up in the line of fire. But if push comes to shove, we gotta be prepared for any sacrifice. Artillery incoming. Poseidon looked up to see 3 giant bolts heading straight towards him. No choice now. Poseidon raised his sword and prepared to strike the bolts down, but before he could 3 bright pink objects rushed past his head. When they hit the bolts, they exploded. What the? Now mon ami? Why don't you and Yemen step aside and let us have a turn? Poseidon turned back to face the voice speaking to him, and when he did, he saw a man dressed in a brown coat, wearing a pink and black top, with fingerless gloves, and burning black and red eyes, with brown hair holding a staff. A woman with violet hair, wearing armor with Britain's flag on it. A young girl of Asian descent with a yellow coat, pink glasses, and a pink top with black pants. A young woman with brown hair with white bangs, wearing a short black coat, with a yellow and black outfit on. All of these people were something similar, but one thing that was common was the X-shaped symbol they all wore on their clothing. They were an odd bunch. But for Poseidon, any amount of help was grateful. Poseidon didn't dwell on them for too long, he continued looking on until he came to see the last member of their group, and when he did his eyes shot open. He had seen visages of this man through his travels. It was hard not to see the similarities. In ancient tombs in Egypt, Greece, and even Asia, there were images left behind detailing this man and stories telling of his deeds and powers. Yes, this was a man of legend he had long since heard of. A man calling himself a mutant. Apocalypse.